right, we are going live. We're going live. Let's make sure that the audio is coming through all nice and crispy like. Perfect. The audio is indeed coming through most beautifully, and we already got some comments here in the chat. Great to have you guys here. So we got Tyler Gibbon, we got Guy, and Tyler Gibbon says, "Hey, the Amazing Digital Circus just got 100 million views." I think you mean the most latest episode, because currently the Amazing Digital Circus as a whole stands with over 1 billion views, which is quite awesome. And guy says, "And we are live. Welcome everyone. I'm Lars from Camille's Harem, a show for novice authors by novice authors." Wow. It's as if Guy knows exactly the things I might say. So great to have you guys here, and everyone else who drops in for the evening. I must confess, I am running a little bit behind. It has been a pretty crazy day. And we got Arts here. Hello. Great to have you here. Hey, it's catchy. Ha. You know what? For the longest time, when we were also, well, when there were aspirations for the podcast, quite honestly, we dropped that along the way. But that back in the day when I would say, hey, not just podcast for novice authors by novice, but not just a podcast for novice authors by novice authors, but also YouTube channel by novice authors for novice authors. It was so hard to drop that. Oh boy. Because it's just something you get used to. You get used to saying it. So for today, we, of course, the big thing to talk about is Gameoverse, the new show that just dropped for Glitch. And I've got some thoughts. Some thoughts I've already shared on Discord. There's already been a little bit of conversation there. I will share my hopes, what I enjoyed, what I'm a little bit concerned about, and I hope that it does well. And we got Gregoy here. Hi, Gameoverse looks cool. Loving Kit's design and her characteristics. Oh yeah, Kit looks fantastic. I'm very interested in seeing what's all done with her character, and them dropping really all of us into the middle of the adventure. I like that, but there is, I will have some comments about that here in just a bit. Did you check out the trailer for Wildwood's new stop motion film by Leica? Yes, I have. That was really cool to see, and I hope it's really good. I saw a comment on the trailer that said that it's based off of a book, and I kind of feel like I want to go check out the book now that I've seen that, because it just looked really interesting. The commentary about fairy tales that's dropped in the trailer, and it kind of gave me a little bit of a Peter Pan-esque feel to it. And Peter Pan is not, let's see here, I was just about to say Peter Pan's not a fairy tale, but Peter Pan kind of is. Peter Pan definitely falls into that category of like the modern fairy tale, but it doesn't follow your typical. Peter Pan does not follow the typical. How's best to put it? Like rhyme and meter, the patterns, or say the numerical patterns. The same as well with the with kind of like with the lessons. Like fairy tales are not fables. They're not meant actually really to impart some grander lesson, some great life advice that people take away and say, "Aha, I feel better now for having heard this, for having learned this." There are messages indeed contained in fairy tales, but again, it's not like a fable which is trying desperately to communicate all that stuff to you. So that's something to bear in mind, which just kind of puts Peter Pan into a very interesting situation. It really just falls more into, well, this is fantasy doing its own fantasy thing, but it has a very fairy tale feel to it. So I'll leave that to English majors to actually quarrel over and fully parse out. And while I'm saying that, I'm just right now quickly trying to finish up some footage stuff here that I can then share with y'all's once we get to talking about the show. But for right now, giving more people a chance to slide on in. And if you haven't seen Gameoverse yet, then I've got no problem with you quickly checking on out, so that way you can go check it out and then be a part of the conversation. Because the more people who are in on this conversation who can actually contribute to it, I think really the better, especially when we get to some of the stuff that I'm a little bit iffy on as far as this show goes. Just because, I'll be honest, my critique and my concerns come from my personal experiences with writing, especially with writing a magical spacefaring ensemble story, like what we've got here. Which it's once you've done it yourself, once you've actually gone into writing this kind of story, you'll realize it's its own unique challenge. The moment that you start creating a story that really kind of goes off and is truly doing its own thing, bucking the usual trends of genre and the likes, you come to an interesting place where you're really charting your own course. You have to explore rules that you didn't realize existed until you went down this route. You can't just say, there's no rules. Oh, there are rules. You just didn't realize them until you decided to write this story. Anyways, guy says they are so well animated. I agree. The animation was really good. Art says just got done watching the pilot. It's like Power Rangers meets Monster Rancher in space. And then the pilot did set, as guy says, the pilot did set up a lot for the next episode to handle. That is one of my that's one of my concerns. It's one of my concerns is that it's putting a whole lot of pressure onto the next episode. And I'll explain why that for me is a kind of a red flag in just a moment. Or it says, I'm mixed with the show so far. The plot has potential for sure, but it's nothing mind-blowing. Not that I'm not enjoying it. I just want to see more before I form a solid opinion. And I totally get that. Guy, I don't really write stories with big casts and big worlds, but I imagine there must be a lot to consider. Oh, yeah, but it's also... to make a comparison, at least that works for me, something like Gameoverse is very, very different than writing something like The Sunlit Man from Brandon Sanderson. If you haven't read The Sunlit Man from Brandon Sanderson, it's a story that I do highly recommend checking out. It's a spacefaring magical adventure story. So in a sense, it is similar with like the world building, interesting characters, zany things going on, cosmic stakes are all involved in The Sunlit Man. So I recommend, if you've enjoyed Gameoverse, or if you want to kind of better understand where Gameoverse is really plotting its own course, you should read something like The Sunlit Man. Or you can read my book, The Monarch Mercenaries Autonomy, which actually shares a lot in common, surprisingly, with Gameoverse. I was actually genuinely surprised while watching this. I was like, holy cow. I'm like watching an animated version of one of my books, which is really, really awesome. It's just not my story, but it looks and feels like my story. I want a kit plush, though. Oh, yes, getting a kit plush sounds great. Hey, we got Min Modulation. Great to have you here. I just can't believe Rubber Ross was finally able to get his dream project made like over a decade. Yes, that is amazing. And also the power of perseverance on the part of creators. Holy cow. If you've got a dream, if you've got a story you want to tell, keep on at it. Don't just after like a small amount of time quit and say it's never going to happen. Perseverance is key. And I'm really happy to see that Rubber Ross is getting to tell his story. And I have read a little bit of the background behind like where this all began and everything. And I also liked seeing the dedication to Monty Alm. For those of you who don't know, Monty Alm was the creator for Ruby, who tragically passed away in the middle of the production for season 4 of the show. And the unfortunate, and not only is that just an absolute tragedy for him, I mean, stepping off this mortal coil in the worst way possible. It also meant that his show really really suffered a lot after season 4. Yikes. If you want to know my evolving thoughts on that, you can watch all of the videos that I've done on Ruby. They are some of the absolute earliest that we did here on this channel. Anywho's, and Art says, he who beeth thiseth preserveth. Yes, thou shalt persevere. If thou persevereth well, then thou shalt eat of the fruits of thine labor and recognize thine dreams. Guy, is this a tribute to Monty? I don't know the context of the dedication in the end. So, to my understanding, Rubber Ross did have the chance to work with Monty. And that, I mean, I think anyone who would have had the chance to work with Monty Alm would find themselves very blessed indeed. Monty was a very singular creator, brilliant at character writing, phenomenal when it came to writing and understanding battles, great at animation, being able to do a lot with a minuscule budget. Monty was just one of those obsessive compulsive creators. Just, he was so dedicated, so good, and even though he spread himself like butter scraped over too much bread, Monty did so much. Like, you do not get it. You do not come across many creators of that particular caliber. Fire Fun Times, great to have you here. Fire Fun Times says the credits of Gameoverse has the most effort out of any other credits for a glitch show, even though something like the Gaslight District credits were pretty good too. They did good with this pilot, and I agree with Minmodulation that I also like that it's 2D. I want to see more 2D shows. They're so good. We need the medium to continue to stay alive, to thrive. I'm really happy that Glitch has branched out now to include more 2D animation, and I really do think that Gameoverse is a phenomenal addition to the vast catalog of 2D animated shows out there. And really, I will say this. I think that Gameoverse has captured the core essence of what like Luke and Kevin and everyone else at Glitch has really wanted to do with storytelling. Like it captures what they've had in mind for all of this. And on top of that, I would argue, just with this pilot alone, this is the most Glitch of any Glitch production since Murder Drones. Which I know it hasn't been that long since Murder Drones, but like we have the Amazing Digital Circus, which is really kind of in a league all its own. And then we have the Gaslight District, Knights of Guinevere. This show really does feel like it's come on in and said, yeah, remember how we said that we really wanted to reach people in kind of like the 18 to 30-year-old range. We want to be able to tell darker, grittier stories, but still make them fun, adventurous, and funny. Yeah, we can do that with this one. It is very clear that we can bring in this fold, bring in all of these different elements, and tell just a really good story. And even when we get to the point where I'm going to express some of my concerns, some of my fears for this show going forwards, I just want to let it be known, I enjoyed this episode. I loved the animation. I like the character design. I like pretty much all the personalities of the characters. Like, there's so much to work with. Plus, the world building is just deliciously complex. Thank you. Uh, it's got all the good stuff. It's got everything I want to see. It's just a matter of how it's been put together. Uh, anyways, let me catch up with some stuff you guys were saying right here. Tygo says the bikini kit was super hot. Really, like, I love all of the different all the different variations of kit so far. And I just have to say, I love Kit and Caboodle. Not in terms of like their the name play, the wordplay in their names right there. I will have something to say about their dynamic later on, but I just love Kit and Caboodle as names. For people's information, Ross O'Donovan was an internet animator for years and made a big video about how YouTube 10-minute video length standard hurt animators at the time, and also joined the game Grumps. And thank you for the breakdown. I agree 2D animation has a quality that 3D animation can't match. It absolutely does. This show seems to be anime-esque. It's not that it's a bad thing. I'm just not familiar with anime enough to appreciate some homages or references. I'm not sure. I myself actually wouldn't say that it's necessarily very anime-esque. Rather that, except for taking certain animation cues from what anime does in terms of just hyper exaggeration in a specific way to communicate action. Western animators have always been able to like make really good exaggerated characters doing a lot of funny things, but that's the thing, is that their exaggeration normally comes in the context of humor. Action scenes for animation has been something that Western animators for decades have struggled to capture in a way that has the same bombastic nature that anime does. So rather recently, still, like, strange as it is to say this, with the exception of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Western animators really were kind of late on the ball to start stealing techniques from the Japanese and the Koreans to then incorporate into their own animation to really capture the flavor and feel of a very bombastic, fast-paced action set piece and make it look good. Firefun says Fold was probably the best character. He folds just like Papyrus. Definitely my favorite. Minimaldation says I used to hope a lot that the talent of Internet Flash animators would one day team up and make their own studio and something that wasn't just 2-minute gag shorts. Until Glitch, I was hopeless. If indie games can survive with Steam, etc., then maybe there's a future for animation and 2D animation. Let's pray. Minimaldation, I'm just going to say this. The answer is 100% yes. Yes, there is hope. There is massive change. There are massive changes happening. We are right now in a moment where things are really beginning to move forward for indie creators. It's just beginning. It will come down a lot to how people, like creators and fans, supporters of the arts, all come together in concert to support each other, because it really is support from all different directions for one another in the hopes of making the best stories possible. So, like, we're finally getting there. And it's been a long road, and there's still quite a bit of road ahead of us. But the honest answer is that things are changing, and they're changing for the better. And this is just an absolutely exciting time to be a fan of animation, especially of indie animation. Honestly, the world ending is always how I imagine the Roaring and Deltarune to work. And I do like that. And we got Chaos here. Yo! Great to have your Chaos. It takes inspiration of a lot of Monsters of the Week shows like Power Rangers, Captain N, etc. That's what it feels like to me. And Minimo says, I remember seeing insanely impressive indie animation animax for Undertale on Tumblr, etc., and then checking their feeds later, and they just had retail jobs, etc., years ago. Yeah, because, well, I'm just going to say this as someone who is not just a creator here on YouTube, but also an author. It's hard. It is very, very hard to do the creator thing long term and take care of everything you need to. Bills have got to get paid and all that stuff. It's difficult. It's truly difficult. Um, which is again why like having people like Monty was such an incredible thing because of just that dedication. And then of course, to have Ross O'Donovan after really trying to work on this now for so many years, for about a decade, to finally have his shot. Sometimes that's what it is. You're just working and waiting until you have your shot. Other times you're just creating because you love the craft. And then there's other people who unfortunately, yeah, lose a bit of that spark, lose the motivation to keep going. That happens to, unfortunately, to so many creators, especially if, again, you're having to work really hard to pay the bills and all that. Minimo says, I would curse the modern cartoon industry for the last decade for not having a place such young geniuses and talent could express their skills. It's been hard. It's been hard. And it comes down a lot to the business mentality of just of chasing. I like to say chasing whales and chasing gold, rather than focusing on telling the great stories that if you do well, they're not going to make you rich, but it's like finding silver. It's very valuable. Might not be as great as finding a bunch of gold or finding your whale, but it is still success and treasure nonetheless. And that's a mentality that really needs to be championed more. And that's something that I feel like Glitch helps to bring. In that, yeah, I mean, they're looking for their own goal because they're a business. They need to succeed and thrive. But they're not looking for the amazing digital circus. That's not what they're doing. They're looking for the next show that deserves to have its story told and finding a way to tell that story in a way that is great for the creator and great for the fans. Tyler Goodman says, fun fact, the additional cleanup was done by Toon City Vancouver and Gameoverse hit 1 million views. I'm glad that they finally hit 1 million views. I'm going to say it's going to be very interesting to watch how this does over the course of the next week, because unless this thing has legs, its real momentum is in the next week. And if Gameoverse ends up in a similar situation like Knights of Guinevere with only like 15 to 16 million views, it's going to probably be a long stretch before it can get fully greenlit, unless it does bonkers good with the merchandise sales. Fire Fun Time says, I didn't know I was going to think about the show. I was really interested, but checked it out anyway, and I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect it to be as funny as it was. It definitely brings good humor. Excuse me. Woo. Everyone's an artist until the bills are due. Heard that phrase a bit ago. Melancholic. So far, I love the way Glitch is handling projects. They look for passion, not just monetization. Exactly. And that's something that I really, just really, really appreciate from them. Now, hold on a sec, guys. I just realized that when I sat down, I left my water just out of reach. I can see it. And we're already in summertime down here in the desert. So I want to quickly get up for just a moment. I'm going to let Chris and Susie do their thing. We're going to come back, and then I think we're ready to start diving into some of the fun with Gameoverse. So hold on here just a minute. Excuse me, fat cat. Yeah. Alrighty. Chris and Susie are going to play some Rad Racer. No, don't beat that game, Susie. Don't beat that game. You don't know what you're going to do. All right. So let's start having. Let me quickly grab what Minimo said. Minimo said right here, and then we'll get going. Okay. So, It's true that it's true for any art industry, like games or music, but animation especially has struggled so much because of how insanely hard it is to produce. So I see this as a very delayed victory, tentatively. Okay, Mimo, and to a lot of other people, if you haven't heard this yet, allow me to dispel something. Animation is as hard to produce as live action. It's also just as expensive and sometimes less expensive than live action. And that's not just me coming and saying, yes, Lars, am so knowledgeable of this stuff. So for a while, I followed the channel Midnight's Edge, and they had a guy who would come on regularly named Script Doctor, and these guys would constantly be all like, yeah, animation's so expensive. And one time Script Doctor was like, I need to say something. No, it's not. Animation is not more expensive than live action. In fact, many times animation is less expensive. He said the problem with animation is, well, some of the problems with animation. Number one, right now, animation does not jive with how producers like to run the show. And producers these days run the show far more tightly than they used to in the past, where it was really up to the directors and the creative team behind the scenes. Producers these days like to get their hands way more in the dirt of each production, and they consider themselves creative entrepreneurs who really don't know what they're doing, and so they gunk up the works. And then that's where animation starts getting expensive. If animation has to be redone constantly again and again and again to fit the needs and desires of a producer who does not know how to tell a good story and does not understand animation, that lengthens the project, and that makes it suddenly become very expensive, and it sucks the life out of the project. Because as opposed to live action, you have to then go back and you have to redo everything so much more. It's really, really hard. So that's actually one of the reasons why producers actually then got to get the right word here, because suddenly my mind went blank on the word. It's not purport. It's this is the reason why then producers today push the myth that animation is more expensive, requires more work, is more difficult than live action. The reason is because animation does not jive with a producer-heavy approach to storytelling. So that's just something to get right there. Animation can be very, very difficult if you don't know what you're doing. But animators, especially those who have been in the industry for a while, either like in the independent sphere or in the professional sphere, they've built up their craft. They've built up their skills. They know what to do. And so they can crank this stuff out. And I mean, it's definitely not like live action. Live action is faster to produce, but it is not easier nor cheaper. Fast does not equate easy. To producers with all time is money, that's the way that they see it, but that's not the case. So thank you, Script Doctor, for that. And he kept having to bring that up because people were like, no. He's like, dudes, as opposed to the rest of you, because these are all just guys on the internet doing commentary. He's like, I actually work in Hollywood. That's why my title is Script Doctor, because I actually work on scripts for people. I actually am in the productions of various shows. I know what it's like. So yay. Firefun says, I think Gameoverse is more accessible and more profitable than Knights of Guinevere. Probably. Cute video game characters with a fun vibe and lots of characters. Knights of Guinevere only focused on 4 characters, essentially. Andrea, Frankie, Sparky, and Guinevere. You could even say that Sparky, Andrea, and Frankie, and we only really focus on Frankie and Andy. I will say it's good for Knights of Guinevere to focus on a small amount of characters for the story. And yes, it definitely fits better for that story. And I do like that that we're getting a very large cast of characters right off the bat for Gameoverse. And not just of the heroes, but also for the villains. So we got a lot of characters. There's a lot of people that we can get invested in. It also allows for more character interactions, which the more character interactions that you have, the more opportunities you have to strengthen those characters And stories live or die by their characters. The characters are interesting, dynamic, with great relationships within the story. That leads to better character development, makes the story more engaging for the audience. So, like, that's really, really good. But I guess then allow me to the more opportunities for fanfic. Yes. Now then, allow me though to already then kind of give some of my one of my concerns, because I've got a handful of concerns. And this is one of the problems that comes with a large cast. I love having a large cast of characters. I do this in a lot of my books. I love reading books with large casts of characters because it's just, to me, that feels more real than a story that is hyper fixated on just like one or two people. And so it draws me in more. That's my personal preference. But being someone who has now written quite a few stories with a large cast, I can tell you this: it starts becoming a chore with juggling all of these characters, making sure that they all have interactions, all have character development, that they all stand out on their own. It becomes difficult the more characters that you have, and especially when you have limited space, either limited pages, limited word count, limited runtime, like for a show. And so if I skip on ahead, excuse me, over here to after the flashback, we get to see them going on over to Flapper's world, and so we get Kit and Caboodle, and we got Gobble. And so we very quickly get Kit's character. We see how we see her hopeful side. There's some spunk to her, which is great and all. There's definitely this heroic streak to her. She's got the patience. Well, she's not entirely patient, but she's definitely got way more patience than a lot of other characters. And we also know that she is struggling. As this episode will continue to elaborate on, she's clearly dealing with some PTSD. She's dealing with a lot of stress. So we get quite a bit for Kit, and I think it's one of the things that's really great. It makes her such a dynamic character. Caboodle is a jerk, but a jerk that we can understand why he is the way that he is, because, well, the universe is ending. We got to keep on a schedule. We got to rescue these people, and being nice just slows things down and sets up more opportunities for things to go wrong. Gobble is the fish out of water who has just been rescued recently and is still coming to terms with losing his world, but his programming, his character is just, I'm a nice guy. I do what I got to do. I learn, I try to help people out. So even though I'm struggling with a whole lot of stuff right now, I am here to help. So that their characters are already established in this second scene. And either you like them or you don't like them. Personally, I like them. The problem is this: the group dynamic, we do not get a feel for it. Why? Because right here in this very second scene, we now have an action. Well, yeah. You know what? Back up, Lars. Back up just a little bit before I get really too ahead of myself. Fun little writing fact right here. This is two separate scenes in one go. And it's actually because of the character of these scenes, or the atmosphere, the tone. You know what? Not the atmosphere, because the atmosphere is for the whole story. The tone. The tone of these two moments are so different. What the story is trying to do is so different with these two different moments, that even though they're happening in the same physical space, it's technically two different scenes. So we got one scene to establish who these characters are, this one scene to establish why these characters are doing what they're doing, trying to save these worlds. We are establishing some very important world building. And then once that world building has been established, once we've gotten to know just enough about these characters, we know them individually, boom, we can now shift gears and now jump directly into an action scene to introduce our villains, to help put the stakes that were just established now into action. And so, yeah, you can have in the same physical space, you can have two different scenes. Normally, scenes are separated by time and space, but in some cases, depending on just how very different two moments are, even if they are happening in the same physical space, it would technically become two different scenes. Which that in my like, if someone can pull that off, that's pretty good writing, and I like being able to see that. So, like, here's good writing where there is weak writing in this moment is that even though we've established these characters, the team dynamic does not feel fleshed out, and it is not fleshed out at all because almost immediately the team is split up. This is a big problem. And that brings me around to actually my second gripe with this. If there's anyone here in the chat, anyone here who's watching the stream who did not watch the trailer before watching this, please let me know what your experience was. Because for me, while watching this the first time, I was like, wait a second here. What these characters are saying and doing only makes sense if you've seen the trailer. If I had not seen the trailer, sure, their dialogue, their exposition allows me to know what they're doing. But it doesn't make any sense. Like, okay. Because if you hadn't said it, I wouldn't have really realized it was a game world. Not even with Kit's flashback would I say, yes, this is clearly a video game. It could be like Tron. It could just be this digital universe. And so I feel like this pilot is missing the trailer. That we actually needed the trailer. Expand on the trailer for like an extra, like make it 5 minutes and then tack it on somehow. Like, you could do that and it would actually still be a very concise, fast-paced, well-rounded pilot. It'd just be 5 minutes longer. And because it's missing that, it feels like we're missing crucial context, and it requires someone who does not know, thanks to the trailer, what's going on, to kind of run real fast with this. That you have to be paying attention. And I'm just going to say this, with a lot of the people that I know, having been a teacher and having been around lots of teenagers who would probably really enjoy this show if they sat down and give it a chance, and also with a lot of college students who would also really enjoy it if they sat down and give it a chance, if they didn't actually sit down and pay attention, if it was very casual, already, let's see here, what was this, 6 minutes in to into the pilot, they might not know anything of what's going on because it's not intuitive what's going on in the plot. And really, only the last minute of the pilot brings everything together and says, here you go. That is the story. And so, again, for anyone who has not watched the trailer, please let me know. Please let me know if if you were able to easily follow just what was going on and just how serious all of this was from the get-go. Because maybe that's just me. But that's what I was thinking. Fire and Fun says, I noticed that too. It's fine for everyone who watched the trailer, but who's going to watch a trailer to learn more about something that should have been in the episode? I guess the thumbnail kind of gives it away, but I don't know. Exactly. And I actually am going to conduct an experiment. I know some people in my personal life who have not watched the trailer yet, and so I'm going to make sure they don't watch the trailer and have them watch this episode and then report back to me about what they thought about it, and then show them the trailer and then say, okay, like, how does that help? So yeah, that's And hold on a second here. I'm going to quickly read some things you guys have posted here, and hopefully that gives me a chance to, again, sort my thoughts concisely. So that way I can share my experience with you about what, like I said earlier, watching this was a whole lot like watching an animated version of my book, The Monarch Mercenaries. Uh, and I'll explain why about that here in just a moment. And I finally have huzzah footage to go with this. Most excellent. So B-roll while I talk. Okay. Art says, you're right, the story does die. John Malkovich as Lord Galbatorix is like 3 characters in one. I know, totally random observation, but John Malkovich is totally random. He is a very random dude, but he's brilliant in Red. I love John Malkovich in Red. I get what you're saying. Kit and Caboodle getting separated feels like a middle of the season episode. Exactly. I wouldn't do that at the beginning for a first episode. We should have had an episode of them for it together first before they get separated. I agree. Fire Fun Sim says the Gameoverse pilot was the longest out of every pilot by far, and it makes sense. There's a lot of stuff to do in this episode, and I would definitely call it an adventure. I agree, and I'm going to say this. I love that they do so much in the pilot. I really, really do. I really enjoy it. It's just that I'm saying that as a writer. I'm saying that as someone who knows the craft, who can appreciate all of it while seeing it. But I also have spent enough time with just people outside of that profession who I know would have a harder time really grasping what is happening here. And not because the concepts are too big, but because the storytelling might not be as on point for casual viewers as they might have thought. Guy says, I do think that there are some pacing issues. It does fast-paced storytelling well for the most part, but it does seem to miss some opportunities. That is absolutely right. The pacing, I agree, the pacing is great, but the pacing also means that we've jumped some moments that probably should have been there in this episode. Okay, so having now caught up with that, let me take a quick drink of water here. Okay. Now then, allow me to tell you guys about my experience with writing The Monarch Mercenaries, so that way you can hopefully understand where I'm coming from with some of my criticism and with some of my concerns. So just like Gameoverse, The Monarch Mercenaries is this massive ensemble cast of good guys and of bad guys. It takes place in space, with a whole lot of world hopping. It's magical pirates in space. So magical pirates going around attacking all these different worlds. They go to a steampunk world. They have an experience on one planet that has a slight smacking of cosmic horror meets Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. There's one moment where they go into a nebula where just the most insane, demented things begin to happen. Then there's one world that's filled with ice zombies. There's another world that's just this flowing magma planet. So many different worlds, many different peoples, cultures, magic systems. There are different rules the moment that you get onto certain planets. Even if you have phenomenal cosmic powers, like some of the characters do, the world that you might be on might actually restrict those powers, or could have horrifying consequences if you attempt to use those powers. So like just how in this show, like they've got amazing abilities, but if they try to use those abilities against these characters without the game's code having been broken by the game being beaten, they can't do anything. And if they share the secret that the world is going to end the moment that someone beats the game, then just this horrifying cosmic consequence just suddenly takes place, and we don't understand what's going on. Gah! It feels so much like the Monarch Mercenaries, and so that's why while watching this, I'm like, holy cow, I'm loving this. I'm connecting with this. I've done this. But what I learned while writing the Monarch Mercenaries was that I really needed to establish the crew right off the bat and the relationships between all of the pirates. I needed to do that as fast as possible. And I learned this right after doing the first draft. In my first draft of the Monarch Mercenaries, I focused primarily on the main character of the story, Captain Carsonius. And so the first like few chapters, it's all Captain Carsonius focus and centered. We get all of his shenaniganery, how he's plotting revenge against these celestial beings who killed off the many of the members of his crew, and we get to see him just like doing all this cool stuff and whatnot. What I realized is that then 6, 7 chapters down the road, when I'm like, okay, it's now time to get to the rest of the crew, I myself was like, why should anyone care? This story is about Captain Carsonius. All of these other characters exist to build him up. But that takes away from all of these other great side characters. And so what I needed to do, and this is one of the reasons why I rewrote the entire book. I did. I rewrote the whole thing. Was that I needed to make the rest of the crew dynamic. Each character, from Omegas to Miriam to Aseki to John to Jeremiah to Gwen and to Rosa and Kanto, they all needed to be their own interesting characters with their own dynamics, not just with Captain Carsonius, but between each other. So like something like, oh, Kanto and Gwen are like best friends. The little Vietnamese boy who just loves how Kanto is just this ridiculous AI machine that torments everyone repeatedly. Kanto loves getting on everyone's nerves. Jeremiah is trying to keep the whole crew together. He's the old man who's bringing the wisdom. Miriam seems at first just like this angry, fiery young woman, but then as the story goes on, you can realize, there's a whole lot more to her. It's very interesting. Aseki is the mystery. What exactly does she do? And there's a lot of people who are like, I don't actually have a relationship with Aseki, which is a huge issue, which Captain Carsonius then tries to bridge that gap. Omegas is the weapons master. He brings all this stuff. He wants adventure. Why won't people give him adventure? Dang it! Plus, he's a freaking huge minotaur stuffed in a really tiny ship. So, yeah, all these different things going on. You get this dynamic. I was able to explore even within just 2 chapters. You get the group dynamic, and you already get interpersonal relationships, not just with Carsonius, but between the different characters. By the end of this pilot episode, we understand the dynamic, or the budding dynamic, between Kit and Gobble. We get that. We understand that there's a deep and long relationship between Kit and Caboodle, and we get glimpses of that, but it's not very well explored. But we don't understand how Kit and Caboodle and Gobble actually work together as a team, because we don't ever really get to see that. Flappers is an interesting character. We get to see his dynamic with Mr. Paper, but beyond that, we don't really understand his relationship to anyone else. And that's because he's just going off adventuring. And so we get dynamic characters. We absolutely do. But the relationships aren't fully there. And granted, relationships are developed throughout the story, but we need a starting point. This crew is meant to be dysfunctional. But even dysfunctional crews, and the Monarch Mercenaries, if you ever pick up the book and read it, the crew is absolutely dysfunctional throughout a large part of the book. In order to write a dysfunctional dynamic and have it still be endearing and engaging enough to the audience or to the readers, so that way they want to continue with the story, you need great charisma on the part of all your characters, and they need to have interesting interpersonal relationships. That is what saves the larger dysfunctional dynamic. That is not there in this pilot. It isn't. Like we get just a taste of it, but a taste is not enough to really come to know these characters. Like earlier, we got all this praise for the design of Kit, and yes, and Kit is easily the most developed of all the characters thus far. So we gravitate towards Kit, but really, we should also be gravitating towards Caboodle. We should really get to know and understand him, and also to Gobble. But it's not entirely there yet. And so what that means, like that's not necessarily that doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be a bad show. Not at all. But what that means is that episode 2 is going to have so much more to do. And that becomes a worry. Can it do it all? And yes, the next chapter or the next episode always has to build up and complement what came before it. 100%. And episode 2, if it's written well, will do that. But that's already a lot of work. Imagine if you're telling, imagine this. You write your opening chapter to a story, which is, again, supposed to be the introduction, the grabber. You already get to really know the main character. So that way they are your anchor as you go into the rest of your story. But now you don't really understand your main character. So now chapter 2 has to not only continue the story in an engaging and interesting way, but number 2 now needs to firmly establish the characters and provide character development, all in order to make it work. That's just more work to do. So it can be done. It just means episode 2 has to hit it out of the ballpark in order to keep the narrative momentum going, to build up these characters, and to keep the audience engaged beyond just the wow, ooh, look at that. Because flashy animation and funny jokes only keep you engaged for so long, especially for a show that will have months in between the release of episode to episode. So I hope that it explains then why I am a little bit concerned. It's not that I don't like the story, but it's the way in which the first installment of the story was told. And I speak from experience as the guy who had to rewrite his entire Magical Space Pirates book, in part because the dynamic with the team and all those interpersonal relationships were not there fast enough to make the crew feel like a true part of the story and not just simply there to make Captain Cursonius look awesome. So there you have it. Okay, we'll take a drink of water and then catch up with some of the stuff you guys are saying here. Okay. Guy says, I think it works overall. Since I was able to immerse myself and have a good time with it, the best art is transparent. And Guy, I'm so happy that you just got absolutely involved in the show and that you enjoyed it. That is fantastic. Firefun says, I like how they can just walk on the ground in the water. If you remove the knowledge that they're underwater, it would look like normal, but it makes it feel like a real video game. I really did like that. I did like that touch. This show does a very good job of making you feel like you're in a game. And that is a real credit to it as well. I agree. You like the moment that once you process, oh, we are absolutely in a video game, then yes, it feels like a video game. It works like a video game. You'll love it like a video game. Areno 3915, great to have you here. Areno says the pilot fast pace kind of makes Kit's PTSD and self-blame feel unearned and a bit for Goggles' speech, which also doesn't get proper built up too. I agree. I said in a very brief Discord conversation that PTSD right off the bat is a little bit shallow. PTSD is a real thing, and as such, it kind of has to be earned, which is sad to say because you're like, well, it's PTSD. PTSD is PTSD. Well, PTSD has been so misrepresented in fiction that when you finally get like real earned PTSD with a character, oh, it changes everything, both about the story and about the character. Great example. Read the Stormlight Archive. Dalinar's PTSD, chef's kiss. It is so heartrending and brutal, and it is earned. By golly, holy cow, it is earned. Uh, man, Brandy Sandy Wine Senpai, Brandon Sanderson just absolutely nailed it. Art says, I think the explanation will be it's magic. It's Gameoverse. Well, and uh, I mean, the PTS, well, as far as like, also, how can Fold survive in the water? We're not going to think about that. Oh, yeah, it's the magic of the video games. It's purely the magic of the video games. Um, I did find it funny that they had a robot crab because, of course, they would have to have a robot crab in the first episode. Crabs. Crab Girl's is best girl in fiction. Oh, yes. Especially if you talk to some Knights Radiance. Ooh, oh, those crab ladies. Or if you talk to Renarin, those crab men. Mm. Uh, my favorite character is Caboodle, even though I dislike Schlot. Hey, I mean that says something. It says something for the character. When you can select the character, even though you might not like the voice actor. I think that the dynamic between the villains henchmen was better established in this first episode than the heroes. I agree. Because they actually spent time together as a team. And Tyler says, what the plot about heroes trying to stop the other heroes to beat the villains was tragic because I'm waiting for the next part. But yeah. So right there, that's one of my first big gripes is that we just didn't get enough time to really get an established group dynamic complete with interpersonal relationships. We really needed that to really get to know and love these main characters. The world building is fantastic. I love the premise of having to stop the heroes from beating their games in order to save those worlds is phenomenal. I love that the villains are collecting the scraps from all these worlds and basically, and they say that they're going to rewrite the rules, but like there's something a little bit more sinister to all of that. So yeah, I'm very interested in seeing where this goes. But let's see. Orlando says, would Cyberpunk Edge Runners be a good example of a fast-paced show in this situation? So I have not seen I've not seen the Cyberpunk anime. I've not seen Edge Runners, so unfortunately I can't say. But they could be. Unfortunately, just because I haven't seen, I'm not gonna pretend to be like, yes, of course they are. No, of course they aren't. It's just no. I wish I had 3 extra lives so I could just consume all the media. Guy says trauma bonding as a tropey plot device makes its potential fall flat. In this case, there's more that could have been done. I agree. Todd Gibbons says, if you made a sadistic choice, if you win the game, your world would perish, but you lose your world. But if you lose, your world will be spared. It's a digital eat to eat world type of scenario. Yeah, I do like that. It says favorite background character was the hero ship. Bonk, bonk, bonk. Yes. Can we get some love and appreciation for the ship battering itself over the head with a wrench, and then having all those little healing pluses? Bloop, 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 bloop. That was great. We also got the trope of PTSD, where the main character has a flashback PTSD dream, and the character says, "You had a dream again." Now, not that it's bad, but that was funny to me. Just because they're bad guys doesn't mean they're bad. Just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're bad guy. Glitch makes $2 billion by doing tie-in shorts with famous video game properties. They haven't yet made that much money, but they've been making some good money, and which is great for them, and also actually great for us because it means that there's potential for more and more shows. Anyways, so why don't we pop back onto here? Uh, again, like I've got nothing against Caboodle getting like story wise. Caboodle getting separated from the rest of the group is not necessarily a bad thing, especially since he gets to then meet with the main villain, starts trying to train him in order to beat Flappers. Like that's what they're supposed to do. It works for the story. It's just we needed more time to firmly establish the group, which is why I think if you took the trailer, spun it out into 5 minutes, tacked it on to the beginning of this, it would have worked beautifully. Uh, let's see here. The so we get the conversations between Kit and Gobble, and I just really like having Gobble in the story. I think I know that a lot of the conversation's been around Kit, but I really like Gobble's role in the story as the fish out of water who also brings perspective and support. Like Caboodle is the one who kind of completes Kit, makes her feel powerful because he's basically her Batman belt. The Bat Belt. I can do anything. I need whatever I need. I can get thanks to Caboodle, which is great for her as a fighter, but as a character, what she really needs is she needs someone like Gobble. And there we go. We got that shit beating herself over the head to heal. That's all great. But I really like the role that Gobble plays in the story. I think again that's good. That's positive. Also, I just want to go back for just a moment. Can 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 we appreciate how Mr. Paper is using the gun from an arcade game to try to shoot the ship out of the stars? I love this a little bit. It's so cheesy, but it works so well. And then how he just keeps missing. Duck Hunt. It's great. Memo says, I think maybe the Gameoverse team needs to hire some sort of small nonprofit group of friends to help them smile. Yes, smile. Keep it simple. Or friends to help them kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. No, no. Once again, I really, really do enjoy the complexity, which is actually one of the things I wanted to get to. Let's see here. Where's okay? So here we go. Here we go. So this is something I both loved and dreaded after watching it. This moment here, when they're trying to recruit, blah, 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 when they're trying to recruit Flappers, not recoup. Recoup would be if they had to get back all the money that they invested in this. They're trying to recruit Flappers, and and trying to do it in a way that doesn't get them in trouble by telling the plot. Now then, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this for two reasons. One is that it helps to explain why our main characters can't just say, "Hey, look, you can't win the game. If you do, everything's going to be destroyed." Because it'd be so easy. It'd be so easy. All you have to do is just tell the person, "Look, this is the bad thing that's going to happen. I know it sounds crazy, but don't do it. Like we will help you. We will help you like make things livable and okay with the bad guys still around, but you can't beat the game, please." Like that would just be the sensible thing to do. But there's a rule against that. Ooh. Plus, also, it helps to illustrate before a planet gets destroyed. It helps to illustrate that there are these cosmic consequences. There are cosmic stakes. Worlds are at stake. They can lose so much. And like this just brings an even just like this greater kind of threat. Like, yes, they're the bad guys, and then there's the bad guys. Like, there's the bad guys of the game, then there's the bad guys of the syntax. But then there's just this. What is this? And so I I really like adding this in here because it helps to answer some questions. It provides more world building. Again, it really helps to establish the greater stakes involved. It also shows the limitations of the characters. So all of that works very, very well. And I know I'm nitpicking when I say this, but it still is an issue, and I feel like there might have been a better way to present this particular problem, but by already introducing this greater cosmic threat right off the bat here in the first episode, it makes it almost seem too big. It's already enough to have this dangerous mystery hanging over the story and over the characters that the world will end if the game is completed. That's already good enough. And if you just simply had it stated, if we tell them what's going on, bad things will happen. Ooh, mystery. Save that for later. But because it's already dropped in this episode, it's so much going on. And not everyone who watches this is going to be able to take that. And I know that sounds silly. And true, you should be able to tell your stories in as big of a way as you want, and as mature as you want, or as crazy as you want. But you can still layer on just way too much information. So, again, coming back to the Monarch Mercenaries, there is so much going on in that first book. So much going on. So many mysteries, cosmic entities doing crazy things, different plots, revenge. New revenge plots are being spun out. Betrayals, politicking, pirating, world building, cosmic wars. So many things are in the first book. The reason why it works in the first book is because I space it all out across dozens of chapters. And so by spacing it out, it gives you more time to settle with what you already have come to learn and doesn't throw the heaviest stuff at you right off the bat. And sometimes it's good to have a little bit more mystery and a little bit more ominousness that you can keep in your back pocket to pull out at a later time. By playing, I think, too many cards in the pilots, Gameoverse risks having kind of lessened its own mystery and its own threats of danger. That's my concern. So again, I like it. It works. It does work well, and it helps to answer some important questions. But I just wonder if it was too much too soon. So that's a concern of mine. And if you give too much information too fast, too soon, again, it can lead to people checking out for various reasons, which you don't want to do. You want to avoid purposely doing something that might help you to lose your audience. You want to do your best to hold on to them as much as possible while still doing the things that you love to do and that you want to do with your story. It's a balancing act, and it can be pulled off. So And I just feel like there was just a slightly better way of doing that. I don't know. We'll see. But that's just me looking at very first chapter, and also thinking about my own experiences. Okay, then. So yeah, the blonde lady. Her name is Misinformation. No, I didn't realize it was a pun until now. Yes, misinformation. And then Orain says, oh, excuse me, I take a drink of water right there. I'm writing a story set in a cyberpunk world, and I don't know if I should show my main character's past first or show him already in the present time with his crew since I'm writing an indie show. Ooh, okay. So, Oreno, here's my advice without knowing the full context of your story. Flashbacks are wonderful and they should be used sparingly. Or if you're going to use lots of flashbacks, if you use lots of flashbacks, pace them out in small bits throughout your story. If you just have one massive flashback, you would hold on to that flashback for a very important reveal. Otherwise, if this is just like some kind of context for information, to like if this is information from the past to put things into context, put it at the very beginning and then say many years later or many months later, whatever. Um, that will all come down to, in the end, Oreno, how much background information to your main character do you want your audience to know? If you want to give, if you're like, oh, you need this information to better understand my character, like as soon as possible, get it out of the way, make it the prologue or something. If it's something that like changes everything, ooh, you either build up to it through little small flashbacks that help to piece everything together, or you save it for one big massive moment to have that flashback. So it all depends on what you want your audience to know about your main character and how badly do they need that information. That's what you need to think about. Fire Fun Time says, I don't get why the game's destruction just stops suddenly. Like, can you explain that? Well, so the game's destruction wasn't happening until the very end of the episode. What was happening is that the game stopped and that scans were conducted to find the foreign elements in order to wipe them out. Why they stopped, we don't know. That's an interesting mystery. I'm happy that that's not explained. It's like, ooh, what stopped that? It'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what the answer is there. Amaya says, what's even funnier is that when Kit is trying to get the ship out of fire, she is just a button mashing with a control. Yes. Oh, I'm there with so many games. I'm just a button masher, especially when it comes to Super Smash Brothers. Fun Time says, maybe it was very weird to me. Maybe it doesn't fully destroy everything, but rather for a second. But why is that something to worry about? And why would they act like that was always why that was going away suddenly as something normal? Well, because again, what was happening was that it was just scanning to find find the foreign entities and then destroy them. The destruction of the planet does not happen until the game has been beaten. Guy says, I do stick with a smaller scale cast with limited settings, but I can learn from lessons from these types of storytelling. Well, exactly. Like even with smaller casts, it's still so important to develop your characters, not just independently, but through their relationships with other characters. That is key. If you really want to know who someone is in real life, see how they interact with other people. And then compare that to and then compare that between all their different interactions. The same thing goes for fiction. If you really want to know who a character is, you need to get to see them interacting with loads of different people and compare how they act with different people. And that will let you know a lot about their personality and also a lot kind of about their background. Fire Fun Time says, the flashback in Knights of Guinevere gives us a subversion, an introduction to the young Olivia and Guinevere, which is a contrast to an old and dying but still very childish Olivia. Yeah, and the flashbacks, and there's actually multiple flashbacks going on Knights of Guinevere because you also have Frankie's flashbacks. And all these flashbacks help to show that Guinevere plays this unique role in these people's lives, a role that we don't fully understand just yet, but that she's an entity that's been very present for a long time. And so that's kind of the purpose and power of the flashbacks in Knights of Guinevere. And I really appreciate that particular use. It was well done indeed. Then Firefly Sentinel says, we're very obviously meant to see Guinevere falling in the flashback as the Guinevere Frankie and Sparky found. It's a very good flashback. Very good flashbacks indeed. Okay then. Let's hop back to here with this episode. Again, Gobble's just man, my little dinosaur man for the win. And yes, I love dinosaurs, but Gobble just really brings the heart here. He's the heart of the group, and and we get to see like this is a moment that I feel is earned. Excuse me, woo, dinner coming back to. I'm disagreeing with something that ate me. Ugh, dinner. Shark. It was a shark. Art says I want to see more of Kit's world. I hope that we do get to see more of Kit's world, like in flashbacks. That would definitely be a good use of flashbacks, just to get more of who Kit was and her story. But yeah, Kit and Gobble work just really well together. But it's also, again, something that thinking about how the trailer already kind of establishes a lot about Gobble's character. Again, it's just like, that's something that just should have been, it's just part of the story that should have been in this episode. And I do like how Flappers is learning from his experiences. Like just seeing this here, I love how that comes into play as the episode continues. That Flappers is actually learning. He's not just cheating thanks to Mr. Paper. He is genuinely learning, and it gives him the chance to fight fairly and competently against snappers. So I do like that. And snappers is just it's just a dumb villain. It was perfect. And Caboodle's frustration was absolutely well earned. I like that. Well, let me get though finally to the last thing that I, especially after rewatching the episode, I realized that this presents a problem. This presents a problem. So let me take us on over to the end. So as Flapper's planet is dying and the Syntax are absorbing its information and its material and bringing it all together, and as Snapper's being promised the chance to join the Syntax, to rewrite the rules of this universe. Let's not forget that right now, like while this is all going on, excuse me, that Kit and her team are right there with a damaged ship watching this planet get annihilated. They are right there. Easy pickings for the bad guys. The bad guys have every intention to get rid of Kit and Caboodle right here at this moment. So while they're like, oh, the planet's going away, Flappers is like, is this my fault? And while it would be very easy to say yes, it is, the honest truth is that no, you were just doing what you thought was right. It's not your fault that the rules were against you. So here they are. This gun is about to fire on them. Well, actually, the gun's not about to fire on them. The gun's right now absorbing everything. The bad guys are right there. Our main villain lead then tosses off to Kit and Caboodle's bad guys, the little holodisc, with their information. So he's like, "You will have your chance to take them out." We are ending on a cliffhanger, and a cliffhanger that makes this all feel like, um, wait, what? It it's it's a cliffhanger that basically stay at least to me as a writer, if they then just jump to another point in time in the future and don't pick up exactly where episode 1 left off, then it's all like, "Ah, they escaped somehow. Hand wave. Everything just worked out magically," which immediately lessens the threat level that the bad guys pose and kind of diminishes the stakes that have already been almost too amped up by the end of this episode. But the thing is this is that even but if you then just cut immediately to this chase scene in the next episode, which that should have been resolved, that means that episode 2, which already has so much heavy lifting to do, has now to resolve a chase scene from the first episode. That is a lot. Again, almost too much. It puts almost too much onto episode 2 to juggle and handle. And yes, a story doesn't have to give away everything right off the bat. In fact, I would say for a story like this, it shouldn't have to. But there's just so many moving parts, so many things that we need to do now. So we need to meet Kid and Caboodle's team and group. We need to know what the heck those people are, what they're doing, how they plan to save the Gameoverse. We have a chase that needs to be resolved. We now need to make sure that Flappers learns his place in all of this. We need to actually now build up the dynamic between Kit and Caboodle. We need to build up the team dynamic overall. We need to, of course, continue to advance the plot and go and visit the next world. That's so much to do. It can be done. It all can be done, especially if we get another 30-minute plus runtime. But that's a lot. And if you're not able to really in a good way, in a logical way, make everything concise and flow together, it will begin to make your story unravel. And I will have an example for you in just a moment of where we've seen this happen. Uh, after I catch up with some things you guys have written here. It says, "I would be mad too. How can you breathe fire and have such trash aim?" I chalk it up as they are too preoccupied with collecting the scrap. It could be the case. And I mean, again, you could do that. It just feels like when we escaped, huzzah! It's like, oh, okay. I guess the bad guys really aren't all that interested in doing what they set out to do. But okay, we'll just have to see what happens in the next episode. Yeah, we will have to see. And I'm hoping for a great second episode because I really want the show to succeed. I am invested. I like these characters. I like the premise. I like the plot. I like the world building. It feels like it's just too much and not cohesive enough. Firefan says, "I'm sure we'll get Flappers doing something to help fight, but I'm sure episode 2 will be mostly focused on the characters. I hope it is. The fight and chase will probably be a smallish part." So Art says, "Who is this Monty Ohm?" As Gregory says, he's the creator of Ruby. So Monty was an animator over at Rooster Teeth back when Rooster Teeth was a thing, and he and the like part of the thing that made part of what makes this Monty so incredible is that he was working on Ruby in his free time as a full-time animator over at Rooster Teeth. Basically, all the work that went into Ruby, especially for the first season, was him just saying to his friends at Rooster Teeth, "Hey, I'm working on this idea. If you have like an extra 15 minutes, I need you to voice these characters. Oh, if you happen to have like an extra 10 minutes, can you please check over like my animation right here? Oh, if you got like an extra 15 minutes sometime this week, can you please do this for me?" And otherwise, he was just doing it all himself. And Ruby it landed so well. Monty was a great animator. He was a great writer. He was a great friend to the people who knew him. He was a great inspiration to loads of people. He connected very well with the fans. It's so sad. After Monty passed away, you can see, looking back at it, you can just see that the people who took over running Ruby, they did not know how to connect with the fan base the same way that Monty did. And ultimately that led to them chasing brownie points. And by chasing brownie points, they alienated so much of the Ruby fan base. And it was just an absolute nightmare and disaster. Monty was the glue that kept everything together for that show. He could never be replaced. And there are a few later episodes of Ruby that I am positive were written by him. That what are the names again? You got Sean Cross and the guy who voiced Jean. What's his name? Anyways, the two guys who took over after Monty passed away, they basically just started to tell their own story, but they kept a couple of episodes that were clearly written by Monty from way back when. And holy cow, when you get to watch an episode that just had Monty's fingerprints all over it, those episodes were so dang good because the writing was amazing. He honestly was a great writer. And just, yeah, all around seemed to be like a very decent, good guy. Just, if I remember correctly, he passed away because of complications with a bee sting. He was allergic to it, and just complications based on the allergic reaction led to him dying real fast. So it's sad. Really, really sad. He also was a voice actor for the character Ozpin. His brother, after he died, took over the voice acting gig for Ozpin, and then later for Oscar, who's Ozpin's soul inhabits Oscar's body later on. Spoilers. Whoopsies. Oh well. But yeah, Monty, really great guy. And I can absolutely understand that anyone who had the chance to work with him would dedicate their own work to Monty, especially something like this. Like this, Gameoverse is a show that feels like it would be right at home with old school Rooster Teeth. Like back in the day, Rooster Teeth, at the height of Red versus Blue, at the beginning of Ruby coming out into the world, this feels like something that Rooster Teeth would have just loved to have. And Glitch is all the luckier for having it. So yeah, there you go. But overall, like again, despite my concerns and some of my generalized praise, this was fun. And that's something that any story that seeks to entertain needs to be. It needs to be fun. And I so appreciate a story that is willing to bend genre, that's willing to just go out there and do its own thing. I mean, we got a magical cat girl with a talking Deus Ex Machina backpack. Working together with a kid-friendly little T-Rex whose whole thing is that I'm here to learn. Going to a water world that is kind of a low-key knockoff of Donkey Kong with a little bit of Sonic added into the mix. Like you definitely get the nods to Sonic, but there's also like some good winks and nods to stuff like Donkey Kong in this first episode, and then just the eclectic collection of villains that bring their own kind of sense of sass and silliness while still just having just this ominous presence to them. I enjoy that. The blending in the cosmic horror and mystery with with the adventure of world hopping and with the premise of the good guys having to work with the bad guys to stop the good guys, while the big bad guys are trying to help the good guys in order to destroy all these worlds, so that way they can pull off their bad guy plans. It's fantastically complex and convoluted, but in a way that makes sense. The premise is concise and simple enough to make sense of something that is honestly very complex and over the top. It combines different genres, it bends genre to its will, and I enjoy seeing that. And a large part because that's how I like to write. For my book Monarch Mercenaries Autonomy, it's all about just bucking the trends of genre, just telling my own story, doing what I want to do, and just having fun doing it. That's why I see here with Gameoverse. And so it's kind of like game recognizes game, and I'm just like, oh yeah, yep, that's what I like. Gameoverse also took inspiration for Transformers the movie. When Warwick kills Snapper, he stomps down to his feet and bits. Guy says, I've got to go now. Thanks for another insightful stream, Lars. Always a pleasure. Hey, guys, also great having you here. And thank you as well for all of your insights and opinions. I really do enjoy getting them. Uh, and and so yeah, I I really really hope that this show gets lots of love. Let's you know what? Let me quickly hop on over to another YouTube page here, real quick. I want to get a count for how Gameoverse is doing view wise. So it's right now got over 1.3 million views within just over 5 hours. That's really really good. I mean, I wish I was getting that many views on any of my videos. Holy cow! And this is just the beginning. We're gonna have to see how things play out over the course of a week. If it continues to have good legs after a week, that will be a very very good sign. Now then, now the reason to talk about the views and everything is because if you like the show and you want to see it get another, if you want to see it get syndicated, if you want to get all the other episodes, it needs to reach the threshold that has been set by Glitch. Now I'm going to put this here in the chat so that way we all remember, that way we don't forget, because this was important. Me hunting this down months ago, or actually more than a year ago, this was so critical to understanding the business model behind it all for Glitch. So in order to fund any and every episode of all of their shows, you are looking at 20% of all production budget must be recouped. Let me make sure I spelled recoup correctly. Recouped from ad revenue. 80% comes from merch sales. All right, there we have it. 20 to 80%. Now, now that's nice to have those percentages. Okay. Now, what else that we need to know? And granted, Glitch doesn't say, this is our production budget. They don't tell us what their production budget actually is. But having had a look at what is made public by Hollywood, and Hollywood has reached out to Kevin Luke, like, how are you doing this? How? Because they drop millions and millions and millions of dollars on their shows, and their shows don't get anywhere near as much love as the stuff from Glitch Productions. Well, one of the things that immediately tells me, and it was easy enough to assume this also early on because Glitch wasn't rolling in dough early on, that in order to do any episode for any animated show, whether it be 2D or 3D, In terms of like Hollywood level quality, you're looking at a minimum of $300,000 per episode. Now, that's the assumption I have to go off of, since that's the assumption I'm going off of, because again, Glitch has not told me what their production budget is, but like that's the barest minimum expected production budget for any Hollywood animated show, $300,000 per episode. So let's say that Glitch put $300,000 into this episode. Very likely more went into it, but let's just go with 300,000. So in order to recoup that investment, they need to then make $60,000. They need to make $60,000 just in ad revenue alone. That can be pulled off with anywhere between 10 to 15 million views, because a million views on YouTube gets you anywhere between $1,000 to $6,000, depending on audience retention. And having recently released a video that has done very well with audiences, I can tell you this, that a well-watched video of about 11 minutes easily gets you more than $4 per thousand views. Expand that on out. If that video ever reaches a million views, which it likely won't, I would get $4,000 for that video. Huzzah! This should already let you know why. This is one of the reasons why trying to make a living on YouTube is almost impossible. You have to be one of the very, very, very popular channels in order to do that. Anyways, for a show like this with a 30-minute episode, 30 minutes plus, if you have a lot of people watching the entire episode or watching the majority of that episode, they could very easily get anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000 per million views. So that means that this show needs to make anywhere between 10 to 15 million views in order to reach that 20% ad revenue threshold. And all the rest then needs to be made up in merchandise sales. So if the merch sells really, really well, then this show will get greenlit. So if I'm just gonna say this, if you enjoyed Gameoverse, if you want to see it continued, you gotta buy the merch. Share it with as many people as possible, but you gotta buy the merch, and that will go a long ways in getting this show green lit. The difference between Knights of Guinevere and the Gaslight District in terms of them getting greenlit was that it took about a month and a half for the Gaslight District to get all the merch sales it needed to justify its continuation. Knights of Guinevere went for half a year about before it made enough in merch sales to justify its continuation. And yes, I know that there was a lot of work that was going on behind the scenes. Dana Terrace and her crew were absolutely giddy and ready to just get the machine rolling the moment that they got that green light to go and have a public display, a public walkthrough gallery for people to see all the different art that had gone into making the show and all the work. Yes, they were ready to do that, but that was something that would only happen if the show was officially greenlit, and it had to reach its 20/80 ratio to make that happen. And that took a while because Knights of Guinevere merch, by the sounds of it, did not sell nearly as well as anything for the other shows. And then, of course, you've got the Amazing Digital Circus. Before we even got any hint of what the merchandise sales might be like for the Amazing Digital Circus, because within a week it got over 100 million views, that meant that even with like a conservative, hey, guess what, you're like getting maybe $3,000 per million views, that means that they were looking at already $300,000. Bam, they made back their entire investment just on ad revenue alone for the Amazing Digital Circus. Everything after that point was gravy, and the success of the Amazing Digital Circus is the reason why Glitch has been able to just throw so much into all their other shows. and do so well with them, and not just with their own shows, but even branching out to stuff like Lackadaisy. Fire Fun Time says, I suspect that Knights of Guinevere episode 2 is going well. We can probably expect it a bit after July. And Greco is going as well. Greco, thank you so much for being here, and I'm glad that you enjoyed the stream for as long as you were here. And thank you for your input and everything as well. Love it. So I think it's going to probably be a little bit after July that we're going to get the second episode of Knights of Guinevere. I think that the Gaslight District, because it's been in production a whole lot longer, and it was the first one of the two to get greenlit, that it's going to take precedence over Knights of Guinevere. Now, granted, Knights of Guinevere has its own production staff working on it, so they could possibly go a whole lot faster. But just in terms of like balancing all of their releases and everything, I think that it's far more likely that we will see Knights of Guinevere return to our screens again, probably in September, would be my guess. Emily says, No Evil Ornament just got released on Lulu. It basically serves as a teaser for the current arc of No Evil. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that, I'm Omega. And I need to do like a deep dive into what publishing with Lulu is like, and it would be interesting if I could get a hold of Betsy Lee. And I doubt she would pay any attention to little old me, but I would love to get that insight from her working with. I'd love to get her insights and her experiences working with Lulu to get No Evil Ornaments published. Especially because I'm interested in finding out what it would be like to publish with anyone else other than Amazon. Amazon makes everything easy, but at the expense of your own creativity and, of course, your well-deserved cut of the profits. Just gonna say that. That's a whole long rant for another time. But let's see here. After almost an hour and 40 minutes of just talking nonstop Gameoverse, are there any other insights, questions, anything else you guys want to bring up as far as Gameoverse goes before we hop on over to our next topic of the evening, which is glitches issues recently with theaters. This is something that I feel like I should address, just because I've seen some of the conversations online with people being like, "Oh, Glitch has betrayed us by doing this. We always knew that things would go wrong. Oh, Glitch is so bad," and there's a lot of people like, yes, now let me pull out all of my statistics and understandings of theaters and tell you just how badly Glitch has screwed up. And all them like, yes, there were some really big mistakes that were made recently by Glitch, but it's not as bad as some people like to make it out to be. It's still not the greatest, and it also though gives us, I think, a chance to have a far better discussion and understanding of the learning curve. The moment that you step out of your comfort zone to kind of do something big, like bring your creations to the big screen, yeah, there's going to be mistakes made, and I think we need to try to better understand exactly what's going on there. So that's a conversation that I feel definitely needs to be had. So, so again, if you guys have if you guys happen to have any other things that you wish to say in regards to uh, in regards to Gameoverse, well, now is the time to get that on out of the way before we completely shift gears on over to talk about the amazing digital circus. Firefly Time says, I think glitch theater drama is very overblown. Do you realize how many theaters they have? It is as much as they can. I think people should be happy so that so many people can see it. Yes, not everybody, but it's so many. And yes, that yes, there's that. There's definitely that, but also like they're like it is embarrassing and it is a bit of a black eye to have to pull your movie out of a whole bunch of theaters. But yeah, there's some elements to that that again, I think it's good to to bring up and fully discuss. Okay, I'm taking another drink of water here. Ah, very good. Say with it being summertime, it's not just here. Everyone keep yourselves well hydrated. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Take care of yourselves. All right, so I don't see not seeing any other comments, inputs, or anything like that for Gameoverse. So I think now is a good time to shift the gears on over. TV Count says from I can tell from the whole theater mess is that distribution of theaters as a whole is complicated with law regulations and how scheduling operates in one country versus another. Yes, Firefront says you have water. I have tea. We are not the same. Thank you for using that quote. Love it. Okay, so what TV account brings up is absolutely the case. So from country to country, there are different laws that regulate when movies can be shown, how they can be shown. Excuse me, it gets even more complicated once you get to the ownership of different theaters, especially like for instance uh, over in Korea. It gets actually even more complicated. That's where a lot of the drama has been, and a lot of people from outside, I don't think fully appreciate just how nasty that the whole situation is. Amaya says the animation of Kit changing outfits did get some budget. Oh yes, we know where the budget went to kids. Kit's magical girl transformation gets the budgets. I'm not going to complain. Okay, but so for instance, in South Korea, it's not just what the national government has decreed in terms of how movies are to be shown and distributed, how they're to be rated and everything, but also what I don't think a lot of people know or appreciate is that South Korea's movie theaters are also owned by production companies. So this would basically be like Paramount or Warner Brothers or Disney or Universal, basically owning the movie chain, and that way being able to strangle their competition. So it's a little bit different, a little bit strange and dicey on over there. And so it actually requires way more negotiations in order to have movies be shown in South Korea. And if you have this independent feature, it's like okay, then well, who's rating this? Who is going to back this if there are any lawsuits, if people sue you for the trauma that they experience while watching your movie in South Korea, who is the bigger authority that they can that will respond to that and protect you, or that we can then take advantage of? If you're just an indie production, it's like it's like for your own protection, actually we're saving you by not letting you show your movie. And it's just it's complicated. It's very very complicated. And them pulling out of the theaters in Australia, I don't know what's behind that as well. That's really bonkers. Maybe that's changed by now, but or maybe they'll change later. But yeah, that was a little. What's going on there? Uh, uh, hey, we've got PCV here. Says hello. Really enjoying Gameoverse pilot. Got some Spider Verse vibes. Hey, yeah, you're right. Definitely does have some good. Again, just the crossing of all these different worlds. Gotta love it. TV Count. I think the thing with South Korea was just something outside of everyone's control, not just on Glitch's end, but everyone's end. No one's really at fault. It just seems like a tragedy. Yeah, because it's just it's it's production. And maybe there's some technical issues in Australia. I wouldn't know. I'm not a kangaroo. Yeah, there's all different kinds of again. There's all kinds of laws. There's contracts. There's expectations. There's protections. There's so much that goes into this. And there's some countries where the government can nix your contract with the flourish of a hand. And you might have done everything legally, but it just doesn't work out in your favor. It's just dumb that way. Now then, where Glitch messed up, and this is definitely solid criticism that can be thrown at them. It was you're trying to do so much with so little time. And I can speak from experience just with publishing, even self-publishing. You can't just do it all in like within a day, within a short frame of time, and everything works out beautifully and perfectly. It just doesn't. Post production, getting things ready to roll out for the masses for them to enjoy, there's always a bug. There's always something wrong. And you need to give yourself time to learn and adapt. Where Glitch went wrong is not in trying to get the final episode of the Amazing Digital Circus out to all of these theaters. It was trying to do so much in such a short frame of time because it was always going to be impossible with such a short frame of time to make everyone happy. Hey, Commoncraft is here. Great to have you here, Commoncraft. So that's really and ultimately where things fell apart for them. And while and a lot of people are fearing that because of this debacle, that it will mean that that it will effectively mean that there's that excuse me that other indie productions that do very well that have massive followings and all that will not be able to get good treatment. They're like, oh, what if Visipop wants to start showing her stuff in theaters? Oh no, everything sucks now. That's not the case. That's not the case. Theaters will not be really mad about what has happened here with Glitch Productions unless they actually lose money on opening up screens for the Amazing Digital Circus. That is what will make them mad. So long as the Amazing Digital Circus performs well at the box office, then effectively what theaters will do is theaters will then say, okay, if you want to make this happen, don't make it a headache for us. So if you wish to release your stuff in theaters, you need to contact us well ahead of time and allow us to properly implement a plan in order to make it work. That will be the response in the long run. So people again thinking that, oh, this is the end of the world. That's just that's just that's doom speak right there, and it's unfounded. Commoncraft says, did I miss everything? I mean, you missed a lot, unfortunately, Commoncraft, but do not worry, because this live stream should still be up for you to enjoy later. Like says, fun fact, all the compositing they did was made by Tilt Mouse Canada Animation. That's awesome. Excuse me. Woo. Man, dinner is really just giving me a little bit of a hard time here, guys. I'm sorry that I keep kind of cutting out. Good thing I'm not getting sort of nasty belches. mostly for my own sake, because that would just not be comfortable. When I was a teacher, this little tangent right here. When I was a teacher, uh, I had so many students, usually the guys, that would try to burp in class. And I burped, bleh, I burped, and it got annoying. And they were expecting to get a rise out of me. They're like, "I'm disrupting class with my burp. You can't stop my body functions." So what I did was, what I did was, I was like, "Okay, guys, you're allowed to burp in my class, but only if you can belch as loud as me." And they're like, "Wait, what?" And so I chugged some soda, and then just like foghorn burp. Like I can do some really deep, loud burps if I have a carbonated drink, and it's just like suddenly all those boys that were like, I burped, are like terrified. It's funny because it's like, guys, it's just a burp. But these guys are like, I can burp. Like the moment that you got like a man belching in a way that sounds like it should only come out of a television screen, they're like, oh. And just like, it was funny because it stopped almost all belching every year of my classes. There'd almost never be anyone who would burp. And like if someone did burp, just like because body, like they'd be like, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Jensen," because the rule was you can't burp unless you can belch as loud as me. And like only one student ever managed to do it. And when he did, like everyone was just all like, "Dude, that was nasty. Never do that again." He's like, "I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." It's like, there we go. Keeping the class in line by simply just outgrossing everyone. All right. Uh, PCV says, I agree. Glitch jumped the shark way too quick instead of planning out and taking to theaters, especially since it looks like they want to go bigger. Fire Fun Time says, if episode 9 performs really good at the box office with other shows, will have a whole lot of budget and backing if they don't earn that much money from these shows. Oh, absolutely. You know, we can talk a little bit here in a moment about potential earnings at the box office as well. Also says, I think Kevin and Luke are looking at a very big picture, that only they can see. Very ambitious fellows. Here's the problem. They like people say that only they can see it, and that's because they haven't done a very good job of explaining why going to the theaters is such a big deal. Comic Craft says, with Gameoverse, do you have tips or guidance on writing video game themed stories? My biggest tip is this: go and read books that actually take place in video games, uh, lit RPGs. So, uh, if you don't know the genre, here it is: lit RPG, books that take place in a video game. Say that's what I would highly recommend that you check out and read. And that's what this was actually asked to me last week. How do you write, like, if you're writing a story that takes place like in a turn-based like game, or if it's like a game and you've got game mechanics, like how do you write that? This is my take. This is Lars right here. This is what I find interesting, fun. Uh, uh, so one of my takes is that if you write anything having to do like with a lot of combat, you should make the gameplay part of the story. It should be seamless. And it's one of the things that really annoys me, especially with a lot of video game isekai, is that you like all these screens just like pop up at random, or pop up at random, and also like character progression is just ridiculous and makes no sense. Uh, I would say really lean into the qualities of the game mechanics. Make the game mechanics matter to the story. Try to make it as seamless as possible. If you can do that, it basically just makes the world feel real. Like the video game aspects are absolutely a necessary element to this world, and not just a feature that makes it easier for the characters to exist. Because when the video game mechanics are just a feature that makes it easier for the characters, then it becomes a crutch. It's there, and you could then literally take it out of the story and nothing would change. But if it's like for instance, like let's take the infamous isekai video game Scream. One of the things that I would do is that it would be that it's not just like, oh, the main character can pull up the screen. No, screens are like something that any person can go like, it can be like, oh, pull up the screen, and probably have it be something like you've got to like focus, or that it's something that other people can see, something that other people can interact with. And it's like, I am bearing my soul by showing you the screen. And then having stuff where it's like, oh, we're in a really dark place. There's someone who's trying to come from behind me to slash my throat. Manifest my screen. I blind that person. Ah, I've been blinded. Turn around and then sock the guy from behind. Or people on a date. I'll show you my screen if you show yours. It's like, it's silly and cheesy, but you know what? It would actually work because it's all like, oh, I'm going to bear myself like that. Woo. Or it's like, honey, have you seen my keys? Have you checked your screen yet? I already did. Oh, okay, it's there. It's at the bottom of my inventory. Congress says, I got interested because I found an indie online story that is a video game isekai that got popular enough to have a semi-popular fanfic about it. Well, that's cool. That is cool. So yeah, I mean that would be my thing. If there's game mechanics, make them part of that world, something that other people know and that they understand. And the moment that you make those game mechanics part of the world, you need to stick to them. One of the things again that I hate about so many video game isekai is that basically the main character just constantly gets to break the rules repeatedly with cheats and whatnot, and that's just silly. Cheats cheats basically turn these characters into Mary Sue's, and then it's just Mary Sue's kill character progression. They kill continuity. They kill stakes, and they make world building irrelevant. That is why you want to avoid a Mary Sue. Conquer says, I just remember that I once saw people online saying they believe no fancy theme story should ever use UIs if it has a screen or any UI is automatically bad. It's not automatically bad. It's just been so overused, and it's been used very lazily. It's kind of like love triangles. People say that any story with a love triangle sucks. That's not true. There's some really great love triangles out there, but you need to be able to use a love triangle competently or in an interesting way, because they've been overused and they've often been used horribly. So it's not that the trope is bad, it's how the trope has been used. Fire Fontaine says, I wonder if there will be anyone coming in seeing the Amazing Digital Circus for the first time ever as the episode 8 and 9 theater screening, albeit it be called Amazing Digital Circus Last Act. I'm sure there'll be somebody. Oh, yeah, there's definitely going to be someone. I think that they will probably then have the same experience that I did when watching sock opera from Gravity Falls. That was the very first episode of Gravity Falls I ever saw. That is a huge monumental episode in the show. And I was like, what the heck? So I had to go back and watch all of Gravity Falls because I was like, that was amazing. What did I just see? PCV says, like they having the last act in 4DX and Cinemark is they probably wanted to have it in IMAX and other theaters format and treat it as a big event, but since they waited until the last minute, they lost the opportunity. Yeah, it's probably kind of what was going on there. Then Comic Card says claiming that stats and UIs and screens uh, are to represent fantasy abilities, completely overlooking that the reason it got popular is because nowadays pretty much everyone has UIs in their life. Everyone knows what it is, so it creeps into their writing because it feels intuitive, especially if the author played a fantasy game before. And again, it can feel intuitive. It's just that it needs to be used in a way that honestly is as interesting. It's just, see that's the thing. There's so an example. An example. We'll have Log Horizon versus basically we'll have Log Horizon versus Sword Art Online. I know I'm aiming at low hanging fruit there, bringing up SAO, but because Sword Art Online at the time was incredibly popular and was one of those shows that really did inspire a lot of this. We let's take it as one of those big examples. It's amazing. The reason why Log Horizon works better than SAO is that Log Horizon acknowledges if you happen to have a screen that pops on up with all this information, that is a lot of information. That's a lot to go through. And so if you're all like, oh, quick, open up my screen, and then you've got there were times where characters would open their screens and be like scrolling frantically trying to find stuff because okay, there's something in here that can help me out, and that leaves them open to danger and they could be overwhelmed real quick, which is why in especially in the second season when they're doing the raid, the people who are using their screens are in the back row. They're in the back line, so that way they can have the time because the tanks are soaking up all the damage and distracting the bosses and bigger monsters. That the people behind can then open up their screens, and they're the ones in charge of all the inventory. So that way they can pull out stuff because they are not being immediately assaulted. So they can grab up what they need. They can take the time to look up all the stats, check up on everyone, get the information. There's time involved. SAO is like, quickly, let me open up my screen. Click, scroll, bam, I got exactly what I need. Most people who've ever played video games, even if you know what's in your inventory, it takes more than 2 seconds to usually find what you want. SAO is all like, screen immediately gives me what I need. Sweet, I got it now. Log Horizon, realistically, holy crud, I need to find my stuff in my screen. Give me a moment. Ah! That's the difference. One feels realistic and helps to amp up the stakes at the moment, amps up the tension and anxiety. The other one, Deus Ex Machina, I get whatever I want. Huzzah! Todd Gibbons says, maybe the animation got even better because Glitch hit 20 million subs. Well, the 20 million subs doesn't magically make the animation get better. The animation for all of their productions continues to improve because they now have the funding, thanks to the ad revenue and all their merchandise sales. They can afford to hire more people and give them all the necessary support that they need in terms of equipment and paid time, so that way they can make these shows as amazing as they are. Now, granted, subs help in getting a greater audience in order to amp up that ad revenue, but the subs unfortunately don't magically change things. I wish that they did, but alas, they do not. Fire Fun Time says it would be fun. To be honest, it would be kind of amusing if episode 9 starts with a film grain or something. Obviously, not for long, but yeah, it would probably just be hard to cut where we were at episode 8. Then Comcast says Log Horizon is amazing. Feel bad. It pretty much is canceled. Last I checked. Yeah, it's pretty ill. It's Schrodinger's show. It's either it's either canceled or it's not. The reason why there haven't been more seasons is because they caught up with most of the source material, and the person who was writing Log Horizon hasn't continued the story in years. Now that they haven't said that they're never going to return to it, it's just we haven't gotten anything new. So it's like, okay, it is effectively canceled, but it's not been officially canceled. Therefore, it could continue at any given time. And that's just so frustrating. One thing about Sword Art Online that makes it forgivable for me is because the author was a teenager when he first wrote it, and SAO was his first story. And yeah, I get that. It's kind of like reading Aragon. It was Christopher Paolini's first book, so you got to give him some grace. And it was well written. And to be quite fair, the first Sword Art Online story, not the anime, but the story, did have far more details and information in it. The anime just highly condensed everything. The problem is that ultimately Kirito was a Mary Sue, and that really, really hampered so much of what makes a story interesting, which is again his characters. Where there's a Mary Sue, character progression dies. Uh, Kirito's character progression was his acquisition of female admirers. And that's why I actually enjoy the Gun Gale arc, because that's the really the one and only time. And I know people are like, but the whole Alicization arc. No, screw that. He was a Mary Sue throughout that whole arc. Gun Gale, Gun Gale was the only part in the story that put Kirito on the back foot continuously and forced him to grow as a character in any kind of way. And that's why for me, Gun Gale arc was so much better of all of them, because Kirito stopped being a Mary Sue, and the moment they stopped being a Mary Sue, we legit got character progression, not just for him, but for the other characters as well. It was good. Conquest says, "Yeah, if I write a lit RPG, main character will suffer from full inventory syndrome and never use healing potion syndrome. I may need it later." And you see, for me, oh, give me the healing potion. I know I need it. Dorcas Daydream is here. Great to have you here, Dorcas. Still haven't seen Gameoverse yet. Not sure if I want to watch it. That's why I prefer SAO Abridged. Oh, yes, SAO Abridged. Dorcas, I'd say give Gameoverse a shot. I think you might enjoy it. Maybe it isn't exactly your cup of tea, but I don't think it's going to be 30 minutes of your life that you're going to regret. And if you like zany adventurous stories, it's definitely a good one to try. Now, and granted, I definitely have my reservations about how it's going to go moving into the second episode. Which wait, I haven't even gotten to that yet. That was something I said I was going to put a pin in that. Okay. Thank you, Lars. Thank you, me, for remembering this. Okay, real quick here. Uh, so one of the reasons why I'm a little bit worried about episode 2 of Gameoverse having to pull so much weight is because if you think about the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I know it's like comparing apples to oranges right there, but there actually is something to take away from this. I remember after watching The Force Awakens that one of the guys in my graduate program, Lars, in your head, you're welcome, Lars. Thank you, Lars. uh, so one of the guys that was in my graduate program, really really cool guy, and a big Star Wars fan. He asked me because he was like, "Oh, Lars, you want to be a writer and you love talking about movies and you're also a Star Wars fan. So, what did you think about The Force Awakens?" And I said, "I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, but I was like, but there's a problem with it." And he's like, what? He's like, what is it? It's like, well, it felt like it didn't actually have an ending. It felt like it left so many things unresolved that I can't tell you if it was a good movie or not until I see the next movie. Well, the next movie was The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi was The Last Jedi. Whether you like it or you don't, there's one thing that The Last Jedi did that it shouldn't have done. And that is that it punted the resolution to the next movie. Both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi do not have solid endings. They're open-ended, meant to say, Watch the next movie to find out more. It left so many things unresolved, just like The Force Awakens left so many things unresolved that it had that the Rise of Skywalker had to then be an absolutely solid and amazing conclusion to make the other two movies worth it. And The Rise of Skywalker sucked. There's no way of mincing words about that. It was bad. It was bad. I went and saw it opening night with one of my sisters and her husband, and they were like, "What is this garbage?" And like when it ended, people in the audience were booing and laughing and flipping off the screen. It was like it was chaos. So like when it's a bad ending, and when you have to and when basically when the first movie doesn't wrap things up for itself well enough, the second movie needs to carry the weight, but then the second movie punts all of that to the third movie. If the third movie can't deliver, then the other movies are just bad by default. Like there might be things that you might have enjoyed, but you can't get over the fact that they never resolved what they needed to resolve within their own story time. By having the cliffhanger ending that this pilot episode does, cliffhanger endings are a great way of hooking people and saying stay tuned for more. But there's so much that feels unresolved with what we've seen from Kit's character, that we now need to kind of get to know this whole gang of Kit, Caboodle, Gobble, and Flappers. That yeah, episode 2 needs to deliver on a lot in order to say what happened in the pilot was worth it. It meant something. And not just, hey, you're tied in now for the next 8 to 10 episodes. Woohoo. As opposed to a roller coaster ride where once you're committed, you're in there for the whole ride. A show has to keep you invested in the ride each and every single episode. A book has to keep you invested each and every single chapter. And so they must tell, so each chapter of a book and each episode of a show must tell its own self-contained story while advancing the greater plots. And that's a difficult thing it's one of the many balancing acts that you as a writer have to manage. And it can be very difficult. But it is something that can be done. And the moment that you manage to master that, it really, really helps you out with your overall writing. Tigerman says, "Hey, guess what? The Wildwood trailer got 80 million views. That's amazing, and I hope that the movie does well. It looks amazing. I'm so excited to see it." Conquer says, one idea I had once for a lit RPG is to have the status screen be an actual physical object. It started as a bunch of buildings and oracles to learn about their own well-being, and eventually got shrunk down into an all-in-one self-examiner that has a piece of glass with written words on it. Well, that's cool, and I like that. It's good world building. With a thing where a side character that follows the MC shows that a specialist can make the screen do way more than most people, MC included, could do beyond seeing stats. It is a full-blown automated oracle system. After all, it has hand readings, a horoscope, and more. Needs extra tools to access because it got very optimized. That's cool. Our Fun Time says, it's like a TV show where you have to wait for the commercial break to be over, and you're really excited to see what happens next, except it takes years. Hopefully not. I hope we don't have to wait years for the next episode. That'd be awful. But yeah, okay. So that was my last. That was my last big thing. My last big concern. And I do hope to be able to put together a far more solid and interesting video that takes this 2 hours that we've just gone through and really condense it down to a much more digestible length, and hopefully helps people to understand a little bit more about the show. Again, help to highlight what I see as some concerns, but at the same time say, hey, look, this show is a lot of fun. It's got a lot of positives going for it. So let's get it there to the point where it could be greenlit, because I really want to see more. All right. Now then, okay, so then just hopping back over to the discussion for the Amazing Digital Circus, the one thing I can just wrap up as far as the whole theater thing goes is this: For any of you who are looking to publish books or comics, for anyone who's looking to do a show or video game, please, please, please do yourself a favor and give yourself time for the rollout of that project. Don't just try to force it through all in one go. It will not go the way that you hope it will. It, things will fall apart. There will be hiccups. There will be bumps. It's one of the things that I learned for myself after for a brief time having a publisher that I was working with. He said don't tell anyone about when your book is going to drop. It will not be ready for them to read until it has been fully published, and you will not know that date. And he was right. And the same thing goes even for when I'm self-publishing. I don't actually know the exact date for when any of my stuff will come out because there will always be hiccups. So I'm like, okay, then I aim for a month to try to get it out, and then I do what I can to make sure that everything's done. So that way, when that month arrives, that my book can then come out anytime during that month, and I have like a whole month to sort out any bugs that come along the way. The reason why shows and movies and books from big publishers can come out on an exact date is because they literally have massive teams working around the clock to make sure that all those bugs are sorted out, so that way everything lands the way that it should. Comcast says, with the thing, okay, let's see here. Yeah, we got the full blown automaton. Also, it'd be funny. MC thinks he will be able to summon status screen, then finds out that he has to buy one. The HP system is just an abstract injury tracker, and he has no money. Our Fun Time says, I think it helps episode 9 that the animation probably won't be too crazy, given the probably large amount of talking. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what episode 9 has to deliver. I was having this long conversation with some other people about how, I don't really know what to expect. Episode 9 can be anything, and I'm here for it. I don't think that any of us can really anticipate yet what's going to happen, and that's awesome. I like being able to go into I like to be able to go into a story not knowing what to expect. I'm honestly excited. Um, but yeah, I don't like even though having to take even though losing some theaters makes Glitch look a little bit like a joke. Honestly, it will all come down to how much money the theaters are able to make. And if they do well, then they'll be like, yeah, it was bumpy. But you know what? We're willing to work with other independent creators again if we're able to continue to do well. Like Markiplier. Markiplier brought in millions of dollars to the theaters. That made them very happy. And from one article that I saw earlier this week, the pre-sales for the tickets is $7.5 million in pre-sales in the United States alone. Now, that's probably actually the United States and Canada because the U.S. box office is also actually tied into the Canadian box office. Most people don't immediately know that. That's taking a drink of water right there. Markiplier being the Iron Lungs game dev, very own fairy godmother. Yes. Our Runtime says, I notice a lot of indie shows take place in either space or completely different type of world. Yeah, because then you've got a better control over how that environment looks. And so it actually makes it slightly easier to animate. Plus, it's fun going to other worlds. You gotta love other worlds. But so in any case, thinking about what this could actually then mean for the Amazing Digital Circus in the big picture, this is something that Luke and Kevin have not done a very good job at explaining. So for anyone who's a part of that if you ever run into that conversation, come back to this point at 2 hours and 23 minutes into this live stream, and here you go. The reason why it's important for the Amazing Digital Circus to make it to the box office and then to do well, it has to do well, is that it will help break the myth that, again, Hollywood producers have been pushing out for a long time, that animation is not worth it. that it can't be done. And specifically, again, because the producers get far too involved and they basically hinder how most good animated stories could turn out. So for a show that is creator driven by Gooseworks to have over 1 billion views on YouTube, that's amazing, and has been a real moneymaker for Glitch Productions. Okay, fine, whatever. Hollywood will never pay attention to that. But if it does well in the box office, and let me just double check this right here, this little detail, so I want to make sure I have it right. Masters of the Universe 2026, coming to a theater near you on the same weekend as the Amazing Digital Circus. If the Amazing Digital Circus should perform in any kind of way that it actually rivals something like Masters of the Universe, which has a budget upwards of $200 million, that would basically be like a little man walking into Paramount and socking out Larry Ellison's teeth. And just be all like, yeah, all of your money, all of your power means nothing. Good storytelling and building a powerful fan base. That's where it's at. And the reason why that matters is because looking ahead, indie productions will need to partner with larger studios. They will need to. That's the future. I know that scares a lot of people the moment that they hear that, but let me explain why. There's only so much attention, and even more critically, only so much in terms of money that viewers on the internet, from YouTube to Tumblr to stuff posted on X, things happening at Discord, things happening on other little smaller self-made and self-owned websites can actually ever do. I myself, I love supporting all of these independent projects. I'm actually like tied to, I think, 9 different projects that I've given some money to. I can't give a whole lot. I've given some money. I've given time and attention and everything. But there's only so much that little old me can do. Now, when you combine little old me with 1,000 others with little old me's and you's, then that adds up to a lot. And big and amazing things can happen. But again, there's only so much in terms of fan resources, what the fans themselves can bring to support indie projects. This is just sadly the truth. And also, there's only so much reach that indie productions are able to have on their own because they are lacking the resources necessary to make the most of their incredible stories. That's just the reality of it. Whereas big production studios, they have the money, they have the reach, they have the connections. Problem is, they've just been bungling it. They haven't been doing well at all now for over a decade. They are not in a healthy place. They have wasted hundreds of millions of dollars. They've broken a lot of goodwill. Hollywood's lost a lot. And that's just the honest truth. But if Hollywood were to partner with indie productions that have a that have a strong fan following, that are creator driven, then both sides could benefit mutually. And of course, then all the fans would benefit as well. But Hollywood is a monstrous machine. It exists to make money. It doesn't exist to tell good stories. It exists to make money. And they have all of their algorithms their pride and their history, the producers who think that they are creators, but are honestly just bozos with who can write big checks. Uh, with that particular environment, indie creators would get crushed and consumed if they tried to work with Hollywood. So that poses a big issue. How then can you get Hollywood recognition and Hollywood resources without getting devoured by Hollywood? That is what Glitch Productions behind the scenes is working on. What they've managed to work out with Lackadaisy, that is world changing. Something like that's never been done before. Getting Netflix to bow to their demands and not have all the episodes of the Amazing Digital Circus to stream all at once, but let YouTube show it first. Holy cow! Who gets that kind of a deal? Glitch Productions is doing what they're doing in order to set a precedent. And then if that precedent can be followed up with, hey guys, not only are we really great, but we have the box office receipts. We have something that you can't spin away. We make millions. We were all over the world. With this show coming to theaters, it did phenomenally. If they can show that they did very, very well on a limited release and went toe to toe with a big production like He-Man, Masters of the Universe, that would then mean that they and other indie production studios like Visipop's Spindle Horse and Iron Circus can then go to other studios and say, you want to work with us. We bring the passion, we bring the fans, we bring the skill. All you have to do is write us a check, crack open a bottle of champagne, and say, "Have a good day." And we will make everyone money. We will please the fans. You don't have to break a sweat over anything. And all you have to do is just swallow your pride. Which the thing is this: Hollywood has shown many times that they are willing to swallow their pride over money. So all it just takes is that indie productions have to prove that they are viable and they can start changing the industry. This won't happen all at once. It's going to happen bit by bit by bit. But this is a very important step forward. And it's not just, and here's the thing, it's not just the Amazing Digital Circus. This is where me supporting all these different other projects kind of has helped me to see the bigger picture that Kevin and Luke are looking at, is that Savory Sif, working on Tales of Zale, has managed to partner up with a small production studio in Denmark. And she will be able to get her show made thanks to fan support for an indie production. And she's been able to work out a contract that this Danish studio will now help her to make her show. So she's doing that over in Denmark. You then have Wonderstorm working thanks to fan help to then work with other studios to make the next season of The Dragon Prince, or will now be called The Dragon King. So you got that going on. Fablehaven is being made independently, being given total independent total independent creative freedom, so that way Brandon Mole and his team can make Fablehaven the way that they want it to be made, and then working with Angel Studios to get the distribution. So they get the money to do what they need to do, and then boom, they deliver, or hopefully they deliver. Another great example. People don't realize this. And it's because I think Amazon now just owns so much of Critical Role at this point. But in the beginning, when The Legend of Vox Machina was being pitched to fans for production, it was an indie production. And an indie production that was doing so well that Amazon said, sell it to us, and we will make this happen. So again, there is precedent. What Glitch Productions is trying to do is make sure that it is codified with absolute success in the box office, that Hollywood will bow to the indie creators and let them have a chance. They might not have $200 million budgets, but hey, you know what? Give these guys like $1 million here. Give these guys $1 million here. Give these guys $1 million here. And within time, we will revitalize the entire animation industry. We will have all these amazing shows getting made. People will get paid. The fans will be happy. And you guys will have a revenue stream. Everyone wins if it's done well, but it requires a major victory to happen at the box office. That is the next big step, the next big hurdle. And that is why The Amazing Digital Circus is coming to theaters. No other independent show right now could come to the theaters and have this kind of turnout. Not even Has Been Hotel or Hell of a Boss. They do get really good views, but it is nowhere in the same realm as The Amazing Digital Circus. It just isn't. I'm sorry. That's just the numbers speaking right there. So, yeah. And also, to be quite honest, Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss would not be well accepted in a lot of different countries and places where The Amazing Digital Circus is in, because The Amazing Digital Circus is nowhere near as vulgar as Hell of a Boss or Has Been Hotel. So there you have it. That's the big picture. That's the why behind this. That's why this matters. So, right here, Conquer says, I don't trust Amazon. Invincible's animation show that being made with Amazon money doesn't guarantee amazing and smooth animation. The fact Invincible fans really defend Invincible animation is just ... And you see, and that's I like Invincible, but the animation sucks. And you see, that's the thing. Like Amazon comes on in and say, we will own this, like again with Vox Machina. And that is where Glitch comes into play, because Glitch has been trying to pave the route where the precedent is set, where the contracts are made and stand, that the creators retain full control. That Amazon cannot negotiate another contract and say, well, you know what, you really shouldn't have any control because we're the one with all the money, so there. When they can then say, well, look at us, Netflix gave us this contract. If you don't want to lose us to Netflix, you'll give us a similar contract. And that's all that it takes. Now Amazon be like, well, we got money, we don't need it, and that's because Amazon has got its delivery service to back up its failing streaming service. Yes, Amazon loses tons of money on streaming. So again, the independent creators, not the Jack's torture being looped. yes, being looped. But yes, it requires, again, a big victory at the box office to change the conversation. And here's the thing, is that Amazon, unbeknownst to many people, has been chasing the box office. They want to be able to somehow get all that Hollywood recognition and love, but do it in their own way, and it hasn't been working out for them. And so if an indie production company can outdo Amazon will come crawling eventually. It will take time. It's not going to happen instantly. It's just one step out of many in this long journey. But it's an important step to make, and it's one that hopefully Glitch doesn't falter with. So that is why it's so important. That's why the money is important. That's why going to all these theaters, that's why it's all important. And that's why them trying to rush to get to theaters is difficult, because it's a bit of a stumble while making this long stride. And it's a stumble that didn't need to happen, but did because, well, reasons. DVCam says, so can't Amazon just cut their losses and scrap their streaming service? They could, but they won't. They won't do it because Jeff Bezos does not want to lose face. It's why they continue to make the Rings of Power series, even though they've lost hundreds of millions of dollars on it. the reasoning behind it is because he put his name and his fame attached to that show. And if he were to back out now, it would make him look like a liar and a loser. I mean, he is, but he doesn't want the proof of that. Tiger says, "Oh yeah, Matt Berry movie Afterworld has been revived by the Monk Studio, who made Wish Dragon and Nezha. Yeah, I remember you shared that in a comment for one of our videos. All right, so let me scroll back here. So Firefly says we have 3 shows that that take place in space now from Glitch. Murder Drones, Knights of Guinevere, and Gameoverse. Albeit space is just a way to get into the game worlds. Conquer says, I'm still worried that Digital Circus's success may make big studios have unrealistic expectations for animation from then on. Well, Hollywood already has unrealistic expectations for everything, so that's nothing new. Why do you imagine Luke and Kevin as elves? Why do I imagine Luke and Kevin as elves walking to Paramount from that? I mean, Kevin and Luke as elves, I think they would love to roll with that. Hey, I noticed that it seems like a lot of indie animations have the looks like a kid's cartoon, but it's aimed at adults vibe going on. Well, yeah. And I mean, I would love to see some quality animated kids shows again, like the old Care Bears, Gummy Bears, Berenstain Bears, while having to do with bears, or like Jackie Chan Adventures, Shaolin Showdown, Beast Wars. I mean, I'd like to see that stuff come back. But there's such an unrealistic expectation of what a kid show is supposed to be that it basically is meant to appeal to kids 1 year, like from 1 to 5, that studios just are not, they don't feel motivated to make a substantive kids show because they think that kids are stupid and can't handle it. It's kind of dumb. And that's one of that actually is one of the reasons why you then get all of these kiddish looking shows that then are suddenly very adult, because honestly, a lot of animators would probably actually like to tell like more kiddish stories, but there's just this expectation that a story geared towards kids is supposed to be all clean and soft and never go really anywhere. I would like to remind people that stuff like Beyonders exists. That is a book series geared towards 8 to 13-year-olds, and it opens with a torture scene. So Beyonders is such a good trilogy. I love it. It's one of the best. It's one of the best trilogies ever written, in my opinion. You also get You also got Toy Story 2 coming the same month. Imagine Digital Circus making money at the theaters right before Toy Story 5 hits. Oh yeah, no, it's going to happen. Maybe I noticed that mascot horror that has as that same vibe to be able to sell toys for both kids and adults, even if the main product is not for kids at all. PCV says, like, out of nowhere, you get the little engine that could. I think Hollywood should stay in the distribution side. Yeah, at this point, Hollywood should just be more distribution and then save their money for like some good projects and learn how to manage their budgets, for crying out loud. Toy Story 5, never watched 4, couldn't stand the disrespect for Buzz and Jessie, especially after the short special with Jessie as the focus. Also, having Woody leave Bonnie the movie after. Yeah, Woody leaving Bonnie was just weird. And Buzz being made an idiot in number 4. It's like, come on, Buzz is smart. Buzz is capable. It's just, yeah, I agree. And just let the production studio cook. Amen. Concraft, her introduction, I hope Digital Circus beats Toy Story. Would be funny. It would be funny. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen, especially because it's a very limited release. But again, if it does well at the box office, that will stand. And that's something that a lot of studios are going to have to reckon with. Conquer says, I also hope that Glitch doesn't get overstretched by all that they're doing. That will, again, that's where managing their budgets really comes into handy. And that's where making so much money, thanks to the Amazing Digital Circus, has really helped out a whole lot. I think that if they're smart, they will deal right now for just these 3 shows and really make sure that they do these 3 really well. make sure that Lackadaisy happens and that it has a very strong debut. And apparently they're also wanting to get into video games. So, I mean, they just need to make sure that they pace themselves and do well with each project, and keep to their 20 to 80 ratio model to keep everything funded. That is smart, and they need to be able to make sure that that's sustainable. Then Firefront said, let's see here. What else we got here? So can't Amazon just cut their losses and scrap their streamers? I already got that. Reminds me of Ogre Papanay going from Warhammer to World of Darkness to make Hunter the parenting because Paradox is better fan work support. Ah, yes. Hunter the parenting. Man, I've seen more and more people talking about that recently. TV count, or shows like Super Robot Monkey Team, Hyperforce Go, or Transformers Animated. Yes. We need to bring back. We just need to be willing to again have kids shows that are willing to have substance to them. They don't need to be dark or irreverent. Like, I mean, I love the Animaniacs from the 90s, but not every cartoon needs to be the Animaniacs or the Looney Tunes. And just not every show needs to be as dark and as heavy as Beast Wars. But it's okay to have those kinds of shows geared towards kids. And I think that we just need to have, again, that more substantive kids cartoons and not just make it so kiddie and just so shallow. Conqueror says a significant amount of the story ideas I have and the ones I'm currently working on end up having at least one queer theme. With my superhero stuff having a major element be queer themed. Any tips to write such themes? So, Common Craft, what I would ask in order to better understand what you mean is, are you trying to what exactly are you for any of these queer themes? Because each one will actually have a slightly different approach to it, and it will also depend on the story that you're writing. But like, are you talking about like people from the LGBTQ plus community finding greater acceptance? Are you talking about like what it means to discover yourself and be okay with that? Are you talking about dealing with prejudice and bigotry, or possibly exploring the nuances of relationships that, quite honestly, I'm just going to be honest here. There's very, very few good LGBTQ plus representations that I've come across in fiction, and I've come across quite a bit, but there's a lot of them that just end up feeling forced or shallow or fall into very predatory tropes. It's a little disturbing. If I'm going to be all honest, it's so like I would love to see more just positive, realistic representation of those kinds of people. I think of one show in particular from the BBC years ago where there's this murder mystery, and over the course of like 8 episodes, everyone's trying to figure out who done it. And you've got a gay man who's happily married. He's got a loving family with kids, and he ends up being a suspect, and you find out all of his dark background and whatnot. But as far as like just him being gay, it was never handled as something like, oh my gosh, aren't you so brave that you came out, or worse, like, oh my gosh, you're such a horrible person because you're gay. But rather it was just, that's who he is. That's what he is. He's got a husband, he's got kids, he's a hardworking family man, and it was just treated as normal. And when I watched that, I was just like, I like that. He's a character with nuance and depth. He feels real. He feels like someone I would get to know. I've worked with lots of people who are LGBTQ plus, from trans to lesbian to gay to pansexual to asexual and all these other things, and they are all people. I've only ever met 2 caricatures who you're like, you are acting this way because you want attention. Everyone else, they're just people. And in fiction, I feel like that needs to be I feel like that needs to be done more. Just show these people as people. It's one of the reasons why, like for the Owl House, Luz as a bisexual girl really works well for me because she's just Luz. There's so many things about Luz that you can love and enjoy, and that's just her bisexuality is just an element of her. I think one of the problems with Amity within the show was is that Amity was a very interesting, engaging, deep character, and the moment that she and Luz got together, Amity just existed to be the butch girlfriend. And I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like this because it just created just this odd power dynamic where Luz couldn't do anything until Amity swept in. She's like, "Oh, my girlfriend." And it's like, no, Luz, you're so much more than that. You always have been. You always will be. And and I don't like you just being boiled down to Amity's girlfriend. And Amity's so much more than just a big strong girlfriend for Luz. Like when characters just become that, that's when you've lost them. And the same thing even goes for straight characters. Like I once time told a guy, like, imagine this. Imagine if someone came into a room and he's like, huh, I'm so glad I'm straight. I'm a masculine man and I sleep with women. Like what would you think about that person? He's like, I would think they're a douchebag. And I'm like, exactly. Anyone who acts like that is a moron. And you don't want to spend any time with them. And the same goes for characters. If a character comes in, he's like, I'm a manly man and I'm with women all the time. Look at my muscles. It's like you've written a caricature. You've written something dumb. Like that's not a character at all. That's just annoying. Please stop. Please don't. Ugh. Ugh. So so yeah, my biggest advice is no matter what kind of theme you're dealing with, just remember that your characters are people. Make them people. And what you'll find is that by making them people, it will make their sexuality actually become far more genuine because it won't feel like it's something tacked on to earn brownie points, but it will become just a part of them. It'll be one of the facets to the beautiful gem that is each and every single one of your characters. And it can then be highlighted then in interesting ways because people will realize that there's so much more to your character. You're like, oh, this is being highlighted. That means that there's a reason for this. And I hope that makes sense. Right there. Best way to make big is try to understand is for a straight person, a quote unquote normal person to these bigots is to make their peace with the gay person after a while and understand them. Yeah, just get to know people. Get to know people. Concraft, after watching Vizzy Pop's work, despite liking Hell of a Boston Has Been Hotel, I felt pretty much compelled to try writing at least one gay couple that does have the manly and feminine pair thing. I mean, you can write it that way. Say here's so I'll tell you what I've done with one of my stories in the Monarch Mercenaries. Omegas, the weapons master, the big Minotaur, the big buff Minotaur guy, he's gay. He's married to a centaur. He's married to a very handsome centaur guy who builds all of his amazing weapons. And their dynamic is not one of them is more like you would immediately think, okay, Omegas, he's the big buff, brutish centaur, not centaur, minotaur. So of course he has the more masculine role, while his husband would have the more feminine role. And I was like, nah, no, screw it. I don't want that. They're partners. They're equal. They are each very interested in guns and the making of massive explosions. They both like to go out and drink, though one is far more responsible drinker than the other. And it's just make them a complementary couple. To me, that just feels way more real, way more honest, way more respectful. Having been around lots of married couples and even a lot of heterosexual married couples, to be honest, it's only weird people who are all like, well, my wife does wifey things and my husband does husbandy things. No, I'm sorry. I've seen a lot of wives do very masculine things. I've seen a lot of husbands do very feminine things in their relationships. It's not a one or the other. And so to me, it just feels more real to make people equals in a relationship, no matter what the relationship is. And I find that just more rewarding to write because those characters just feel more real to me, and they don't have to occupy something. They don't have to be a checkbox to be ticked off. Rather, instead, they're my own complex characters. So that's my take. That's my experience. Um, So Conqueror says also bisexuality without bi erasure. Like for example, Luz and Charlie are pretty much considered lesbians by the fans. They can't be paired with guys. Uh, yet a bit character who gets a straight relationship doesn't count. Yeah, I will say not to like yeah, not to get far too much into the weeds here and everything because this can be very touchy for some people. But I worked with a guy for years who was bisexual. He was married to a woman, and there were people who were like, you're not bi," and they refused to accept him as part of the community, as part of the LGBTQ plus community because he was married to a woman. And and the thing was is that like I remember hearing about how he had like very serious conversations with his wife about his sexuality and everything, and it's like I'm like guys, like let off, like he's going through his own struggles, through his own feelings. He married the person that he loves and made a family. If he was married to a guy, he'd be married to a guy and he would still be bisexual because he would still find himself attracted to women. What makes him who he is that he found someone that he loves. He raised a family and he's doing what he loves. Let the man alone. Um, and 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 yes, if you're going to have a bisexual character within a story, I think that you really should bring up that attraction to both sides. I intend to do that with a character in an upcoming story, who she'll be bisexual, and you will get to find out about the people that she's had relations with, and and whoever she ends up with. I mean, that's just who she honestly falls in love with. It's not an erasure of her feelings. It's just an evolution of the character. So it's but it's also incumbent upon the readers and viewers for those kinds of stories to also just to also just be aware that people aren't meant to be put into a box. People aren't a series of check boxes to be ticked. We are all far more complex than that. So ultimately coming back around to it, coming back around to it, that's my greatest bit of advice. No matter what themes you want to deal with, no matter what kinds of characters you're writing, please make them real. Especially if you're going to deal with LGBTQ plus themes. Do not turn these characters of yours into caricatures. They are far more than just their sexuality. Their sexuality should be well represented, should be respected within your story, but please make sure that they exist as characters and not just as a vehicle for one ideal. If you did that with any character for anything, whether that be for religion or getting across your version of masculinity or your view on a particular political or your view on a certain political ideal. I mean, you can do that with background characters. Characters are meant to be one and two dimensional, but for a main character, no, no. Main characters deserve to be their full complex selves. Fire Fun Time says, once you have over 5,000 brownie points, you can bake the 400-ton ultimate brownie. in your imagination, because brownie points have never been translated to actual brownies. In fact, I actually have I have an example of that here. Today I was taking my niece for a walk, and I was thinking about future things for the channel, and we've got the upcoming Harry Potter series, and so I thought to myself, you know what? I know that like J.K. Rowling is absolutely persona non grata, but I would like to do a review of the HBO series when it comes out. I would like to do that. Even though I know that a lot of people do not want to touch Harry Potter anymore, I'm like, Harry Potter is a generation defining story. It's one that a lot of people these days just want to say, "Oh, it was always badly written. Don't worry about it." But I'm sorry, it is well written. At least the first few books, it just is. So it's like, how did we get here? Well, it's because J.K. Rowling, before she began spouting off things that she shouldn't have, was already with her last book trying to earn brownie points by saying Dumbledore's gay. Some people only picked up the books for the first time because they're like, oh yes, gay characters, gay representation, hallelujah. And then J.K. Rowling's like, oh yes, I love all the LGBTQ community. Yes, please, brownie points, brownie points. And the moment that she said something that ticked them off, you can argue rightfully so, she lost all those brownie points. And suddenly all those brownie points that were supposed to translate on over to lots of money never happened. And yeah, brownie points never have turned out to be money. And if they sometimes do, committing to brownie points means that if you ever misstep, you lose all those brownie points, and you suddenly make a lot of people very angry with you. Never go for brownie points. If you want brownies, make them yourself. Make real brownies or go buy them at a store. Do not work for brownie points. Brownie points will never get you anywhere. All right. So Geiger says, I meant doesn't have the manly and feminine gay couple thing. I meant the opposite. Also, something that pips up in my writing are gender nonconforming themes. I want to write some gender nonconforming characters that are explicitly not gay or trans. Well, you want to know what you can do with that. Like, for instance, have a really buff guy love to do patisserie. Like, if you watch the Great British Baking Show, one of the things I absolutely love about the Great British Baking Show is when you got the big macho man there, like the guy who's the personal trainer, or you've got like the military veteran. You just got these big hulking dudes that they show up in the tent, and then they're all like, "Oh, I love making hot cross buns. Oh, I love making all of these cakes for all of my friends." It's so funny because you just do not expect it. And the way that they're like, I love sharing bakes with all of my guy friends. And it's so funny because like these guys are very macho. They're usually very straight. And here they are gushing like little girls about baking and how they love to share their stuff with other people. And like that's something that is stereotypically treated as a feminine quality, and boom, it's there. But you don't even have to go that overt. You got a guy. You have like a guy who decides that he's going to take the kid out for a walk and cradle the kid and sing lullabies. Boom. It's a simple thing. Something that, again, stereotypically a guy's not supposed to do, but there's so many guys that do it. A girl goes out wearing a business suit, brings home the bread. Boom. Like, it's simple stuff. It's simple stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Common craft, what you say right there at the very end, I have to remember that people being queer is a part of them, not the core. Exactly. And you can say that for anything. Anything. Like me, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's a big part of who I am, but it's not the only thing. And that's one part of me. I'm a guy who nerds out. You know what? I'm not just a nerd. I like doing stuff outside. I like getting physical. I enjoy watching football. I enjoy watching basketball. I even enjoy going playing and watching soccer or ultimate frisbee. Okay, awesome. So sports, but sports is not the only thing that defines me. So there's all these different things that make us who we are. I always told my students, we are gems. We are these beautiful gems that are slowly being cut and refined and polished. And focusing on just one particular aspect of a person is like picking up a beautiful diamond or emerald or ruby, holding it up and saying, "You see this little facet right here, this little tiny point on this gem? Oh, that's so beautiful. That's the only thing that's amazing about this." That's just silly. Now, granted, that gem would not be as beautiful as it is without that element, but it's only one part of them. So you want to be able to appreciate the whole of a person, as well as being able to celebrate the different elements that make that person who they are. If we can do that in real life, and if we could do that in fiction, we would have a much richer, diverse, and I think also probably a more accepting world. Now then, that's the idealist of me speaking. The hope springeth forth eternal. Congress says, "Yeah, I'm thinking about having a guy who is like whatever with guys. He's bros, but when his girlfriend is nearby, he's a blushing, stuttering mess, nearly anime girl style." I like that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So there you have it. Like that's and if you want more like detail into that, like months ago, with Nathan and Zaza here on a live stream. I mean, we had a massive like 4D like look into characters, and I definitely recommend going back and having a look at that. That's when Zaza did art commissions for people. That was a whole lot of fun. Fire Fun Time says men, sports, girls, sports, everybody else, sports. Me, ew, I hate sports. I don't actually hate sports. I just don't care for it or watch it. But sometimes it's entertaining. I like boxing, I think. Awesome. Yeah, again, we're all complex individuals with all different kinds of things about ourselves. And coming back to writing. So like again, let's actually now like bring it back on around to what we see here in something like Gameoverse, and you can even apply it to a lot of the other shows that we see on Glitch. So you've got Kit. Kit is the hero of her world. She is an adventurous kitty girl with with a Deus Ex Machina backpack that serves as her best friend. She's also dealing with PTSD. We know that she's got some relationships with other people in the organization, and she's dealing with the guilt that she still harbors from the destruction not only of her own world but of other worlds that she failed to save. And so there's all these different little elements of her, of grief, PTSD, heroism, her relationships, her spunkiness. All of these different things help to make Kit a far more engaging and interesting character. And if the show can continue to build and elaborate on all of that, then Kit will be far, far more interesting. Now, Flappers and Caboodle are right now rather flat. They will require far more development as characters to go beyond dumb and heroic and just jaded and crude. Whereas Gobble has already shown that he's got real good potential depth in that he is all about learning, but he's also about helping. We see him trying to grow a spine and be a supportive hero outside of his own world. So we're seeing some growth in his character. We're beginning to see already a little bit of depth for him, and that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed those two characters, Gobble and Kit, because they're far more deep, and we get to see more of their elements thanks to their interactions with one another. That's what you want to do with your characters in your own writing. Give them depth. Have all these different aspects and attributes to them, and don't just simply tell the audience they have all these things. I myself have done that as an author, and that actually gets really boring. But rather show us all of those things, their hopes, their fears, their dreams, their talents, their weaknesses, their relationships, all of that. Show us those things through their interactions with other characters. That is so much more rewarding. It's so much more rewarding to write, and it's so much more rewarding to read and to view in the case of watching this cartoon. I'm Omega says, so how do you deal with a character who can regenerate his after every death blow? The first one I'm making is basically who is a rival to Transman, who is his team's secret weapon. So I deal with a character who can regenerate after every death blow. I mean, as far as that character, Omega, with only what you're giving me right there, what I would say is that, again, focus on the character. Why is this character a part of this team? What's their motivation? What do they hope to gain out of it? How do they feel about always regenerating and always coming back? And what does that feel like? What does that do to them? How do they cope with it? Delving into those elements will make that character just feel, again, just far more fleshed out, and give people a whole lot more to chew on as they read his experiences. Comic says, my superhero story is touching on an idea of a superhero that transforms into a powered form, but the transformation is female while his unpowered form is male, and he is figuring out how he feels about it. Oh boy. And I wish I had Scott here for this, because Scott would definitely talk with you about that. He really enjoys that concept. It happens because the power is basically the power to turn into a nymph, but nymphs are female only. And trees IRL are mostly I'm going to mispronounce this. Hermaphroditical. So those traits influence the powers. Well, really cool, really interesting. I like that. I think that's really interesting, and to get away from just saying interesting all the time. What I would say is this: having written different scenes where characters, through like basically through a variation of polyjuice potions or through spells or what have you, transform themselves into different characters, even different genders, in order to hide. That what you want to do is you want to bring up, like, what does that mean? How does that feel to suddenly have just a very different body? How do you reconcile that? There are definite physical changes. And you also want to talk with people to get an understanding of those physical changes. So, like, for instance, I mean, how many times in anime and in manga have characters been gender bent, and suddenly now a guy's got big boobs and he's like, oh, big boobies, yay. Well, what most guys who don't deal with that don't know is that there's a strain on the shoulders and on the back for women who are more endowed upstairs. That changes things. You then want to have good clothes that help to support without making you feel like you're in a sauna. So that's something that most guys don't deal with. But also, most girls don't know what it's like to run around with guys' dangly bits. Or what that might feel like to suddenly sit and then crush said dangly bits, or to suddenly get hit there. They're just not used to that. Or also then just other bodily functions. You can ask people, find out. It can be a little bit embarrassing sometimes to ask those questions, but you know what? That's where having a good writing group helps out. I remember, again, when writing for actually a scene, again, for the Monarch Mercenaries, I turned to Camille. I'm like, okay, Camille, I need to know some things, so please tell me. And I leaned in. I'm like, tell me what it's like to be a girl. And I'm like, I already know some things because I've got 4 sisters. They've been very open. I know some stuff, but I want another perspective. And so just talking, asking questions, and just saying, look, I'm trying to write my characters well, so they represent well, and don't just create this silly idealized version that is absolutely inappropriate and unrealistic. And boom, you get responses. People will help you out. It's great. Example of good writing versus bad writing. Bob the Knight has a sword, a suit of armor, and a lust for revenge. In the good writing, Bob walked all night in the woods, killing anybody who so much as glances at him. His suit of armor was very heavy, which proved difficult for him in his endeavor. He held a photo of his dead family in his locket. Yeah, develop exactly coming back around to don't just tell but show, have interactions. That's what we want to see. But Fire Fun Times right there, it's a good start. It's a good start. Yeah, the way the transformation is first described is nothing is quite where it should be. Some places bigger or smaller or softer, and nothing feels broken out of place either. The biggest source of drama is that the nymph form is technically the default. To transform back, he needs to use a special technique that is conscious, so he can't use the nymph form just as a power up that he can't ignore on his free time. Very, very interesting. That's good. I like that. I like, excuse me, I like that a transformation is a little bit more complicated than just your typical anime girl transformation. I pull out a wand and I say something, and boom. All right. Okay. So we've been on here now for a little over 3 hours, and I'm beginning to feel my voice. Doing better now. Wow, a couple times where I'm like, oh, I'm beginning to feel my voice. It's been like after 2 hours, so I'm feeling pretty good here. But I think that I should start wrapping it up here. It's beginning to get a little late. Some things I still need to do, and my voice is beginning to go a little bit. But before we wrap things up here, I'm going to say sorry. Basically, basically a first guy is a dude who got used to dying to the point that he believes himself to be immortal, and the rival is usually a bit of a softie, but is serious in protecting people. All right then. So I mean, just start building up on that, like the arrogance of someone who believes that they're immortal. How that might like detach them from their sense of humanity, and especially again this uh how exactly then does that tie into this rivalry with this other person who is a softie but feels this deep need to protect other people, which means having to put yourself into situations where a softie would obviously feel very uncomfortable. And as you explore that dynamic and what brings these two characters into conflict with each other, I think that's where you're going to find like a lot of really interesting stuff to write about there. I'm Omega. Conquer says, I'm also thinking to have his unpowered form will also eventually develop some powers from getting better control, so that way being a girl wouldn't just be a superpower. I really want to get his theme right, really get this theme right. So yeah, I mean, I'll say this, maybe say one of the unique things about a transformation is that the transformation is the thing that's magical. But I think that one of the powerful things that can come from a guy, for instance, transforming into a girl, is not just simply like, oh, I now understand how like how hard things are for women, which is usually where most stories go. I think you can actually take it maybe though like a little bit further. It's like I now understand, like I can see where different thinking is coming from. I also now become more aware of when I need to be softer and also where I need to be stronger. That's one of the things that for a lot of people, not just guys, but especially for guys, that they feel unsure of their actions because they honestly actually don't know how other people will react. For a person who can transform to a girl or to a guy and vice versa, and back and forth, they get to see the world differently. That perspective, rather than being like, "Oh, I now see how bad you have it or how good you have it," that's really shallow. Rather, thanks to this perspective, I understand the world better in a way that allows me to help where I can, and where you can then turn that power, or you can turn that insight into a superpower, is in those moments where magic won't fix the situation, but the right words or the right deeds will. That's one of the things that makes Superman, when he's written well, really compelling. Because Superman can punch his way and can punch his way through anything. He's fast enough that he can reverse time. He's powerful enough that he can move galaxies. So it's like okay, so yeah, Superman is just too powerful to fail. What makes Superman a very compelling hero is when Superman is confronted with something that he can't necessarily punch his way out of, or where punching his way out wouldn't actually yield the best result. So Superman has to be a good reporter, or Superman has to let Lois Lane take the wheel a little bit. Or maybe Superman just really needs to be that good, wholesome Boy Scout and do just something nice, say the right words at the right time, or help someone else to do the thing that they need to do that will make them realize the goodness in the world. And that's the power, that's the real power of Superman, is that Superman doesn't just punch his way out of every problem, but that Superman understands weakness as well. And he knows when being a human can be a strength, when being a weak human, just trying to do their best, can do some amazing things. That's when Superman, I think, is actually at his best. Congress says one thing I have him face beyond just getting used to being a girl is eventually noticing how being a guy is like seen from the outside, like seeing both sides of the harmful gender roles. I mean, that's very good, yeah. And understanding this is like everyone's got their own rough bits. Everyone, and here's the thing, it also goes from culture to culture. It's not just simply, oh, guys versus girls, but it's also culture wise. Different cultures have different perspectives and values as to what is masculinity and what's femininity. And so there's never a true universal approach to a lot of this. And so you can have some real interesting fun with that. And I really like that common craft. Again, if you want to be able to really explore that, it's all in the character interactions. Your main character will not understand that without having the chance to speak with other characters, to interact with other characters, to share experiences with those other characters. So if you want to be able to illustrate that, just remember, it's all in the character interaction. That is where you really get to see that come to life. So, this was fun. This was good. Got to talk a lot about Gameoverse and some writing, some how to write good representation. Talking a little bit about how Glitch is doing, what their big step is, and yeah, my hopes, fears, and everything for Gameoverse. So yeah, man, we covered a lot here in just over 3 hours. Woo-hoo! Thank you everyone for being here for this live stream. I hope to be able to return to you guys soon with another video. But until then, if you'd like to support everything we do here, if you just happen to be here and you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. If you'd like to check out the books that we've published, you can check them. The links will be in the description below once I update the description for this particular video. Also, because I brought up a lot with Monarch Mercenaries, you can check it out if you want right now. I will say this. I'm actually going through the process of doing an edit for it. One of the big reasons is because I found out only after the book was published that the artists I had hired for the work ended up using a lot of AI art. Now, the cover art was done by a fantastic guy that I've had the chance to work with now for years, Kevin. Fantastic artist, great to work with. There was another artist who unfortunately gave me a lot of AI art, and I didn't realize it at the time because this was before I knew a little bit more about AI. This was years back. And so looking back at it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's AI art in this book. I'm not comfortable with that. So I decided I'm going to get more artists. I'm going to try to bring this book back to life the right way, and also give me a chance to revisit some things, to fix some things within the book. So if you want to get the version of it that's right now available, go ahead and please do if you really want to check it on out. But I will have an updated and proper version in the near future. Hopefully, I'll just take some time to get the right artist for it. But I've gone through and have done a lot of the necessary edits, so we're on the right track. We'll get there eventually. But everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this part of our adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, you take care and tschüss.